Good morning. It is 7 o'clock. You're watching Breakfast here on Sky News. This morning, at least 30 people are dead after one of the strongest hurricanes ever to hit the Caribbean.
Plus, the Conservatives call for Rachel Reeves to quit as Chancellor because she broke the rules by renting out her London home without a licence.
It is Thursday, October the 30th. Hurricane Melissa carves a trail of devastation throughout the Caribbean. The authorities there say they don't yet know how many people may have died, and they desperately need help to support those who survived. Also this morning, Keir Starmer accepts an apology from the Chancellor, who says she didn't know she needed a licence to rent out her London home.
Given where we are at the moment and that there's going to be no proper investigation, I think he needs to do the right thing and accept that her position is not tenable.
Donald Trump promises to lower tariffs on China after meeting with President Xi Jinping. Also this morning, we'll hear from a mum who faces a nightly battle to keep her daughter alive and gets no help from the NHS. Good morning. It is good to have your company this morning. At least 30 people are known to have been killed by one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes ever recorded, but that number is expected to rise higher as emergency workers reach those communities where almost nothing is now left standing. Hurricane Melissa tore across the Caribbean, bringing sustained winds of 185 miles per hour and some surges even higher than that, as well as flooding as well. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner has more now.
Hurricane Melissa tore through the heart of this island. The region known as Jamaica's breadbasket for its crop growing is hardest hit. A seemingly endless trail of destruction.
October 2025, at the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. It has been devastating.
It's a date and a day nobody here will forget. The aftermath of the strongest storm to hit Jamaica since records began. People here were still rebuilding from Hurricane Beryl, which caused widespread damage last year, but this is much worse. The hurricane also pummeled parts of Cuba. Haiti escaped a direct hit, but wasn't spared. Scores of people losing their lives from flooding.
I had 4 children at home, a 1-month-old baby, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, and another who was about to turn 4. All 4 are gone.
Jamaica's Prime Minister surveyed the disaster zone. Authorities say the country's healthcare system is in crisis too. Not hard to see why, when this is the main hospital in the area. The roof was ripped off here, and at another hospital nearby too. Yet nurses continued to treat patients even as the storm raged.
Even after the storm, we have emergencies, using lanterns and flashlights, but God has been good to us.
The town of Black River was shredded by wind. Here it is before Melissa and after. A closer look at the main street shows previously colourful homes, restaurants and bars now rubble. The roof just taken clean off there.
It's gone. Yeah, it peeled off.
Nikki's house was directly in the hurricane's path. She hunkered in the garage as it hit.
When it really started kicking, it was truly scary. The building was shaking. The windows were bowing in despite the shutters, the hurricane shutters. Water was coming in under the door. And it was just this most unearthly noise. It's not a howling. It's almost like an express train.
How difficult is the recovery going to be for some of these places?
Unimaginable. Jamaica has never had a storm of this intensity, this strength. And a lot of people didn't take it as seriously as they should have. It's just about as bad as it could have got.
Mm-hmm. With roads blocked, emergency services struggled to reach the worst affected areas, even with the help of Good Samaritans.
A little bit of a waterfall in here right now.
Around 25,000 tourists are still stuck on the island. Most rode out the storm in hotels, some of which were also badly damaged. But a message of resilience is echoing across Jamaica.
Oh, the fact of the matter is that this won't be the first and the last hurricane that we've experienced. We had a major Cat 4 37 years ago and one 37 years before that. So we've been experiencing this for decades, and we become more experienced and more resilient. And it's time now for the government and the world to come to the assistance, and let's get Jamaica back on track in the shortest possible time.
The US is sending urban rescue and disaster relief teams to the Caribbean. Finding any survivors and preventing the spread of disease will be their first job. Martha Kellner, Sky News.
Well, Thomas is back with me here in the studio, our science correspondent Thomas Moore. We've been discussing this for 3 days, but now we're getting a truer picture of the devastation wreaked by Melissa, and the before and after pictures in particular show that, don't they?
Yeah, extraordinary. The satellite photos now that we're beginning to get through, as you say, taken a few days before the storm and then immediately aftermath. And it just shows how there are large areas that have been completely devastated. We've got some pictures of Black River, which is in St Elizabeth Parish. This is before, this is on the southwest coast of Jamaica, and took a direct hit as Melissa tore in off the Caribbean. And you can see the buildings there perfectly normal, and now we're going to take a look at them after.
Wow.
And you can see they're just completely wiped out by these ferocious winds that tore through there. What you can't see, I don't think it's quite detailed enough, but those leaves have been stripped of their leaves, many of them on their sides, and of course, so many houses either completely knocked over or they've lost their roofs. And I think we've got another one of Black River again to show you. So that's before. That looks like a more industrial, commercial area. You can see a big white building. Keep your eye on that because you'll see in the next as it. This is after coming through there, and it's just completely destroyed.
That's so obvious, isn't it? It really is devastated there. I think it's important at this point, Thomas, to remind people these are images we verify, that we've got ourselves, or I think it's from Vantor, but there's a lot of stuff swirling out there that is fake, that is AI-generated imagery of the devastation, which is not true at all. It's important people ask questions of this stuff right now.
As always on social media, be careful on your source. Vantor is a very reputable satellite company, and we trust these images as they're coming through to show that devastation. And these kinds of images are being used not only by the Jamaican government to assess where the needs are, but also aid agencies where they will try and prioritise areas that they need to reach, first of all, because many of these more remote communities will be cut off, very difficult to reach them by road. And you saw there that the Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, going by helicopter to get around some of these places. And he said 80 to 90% of roofs were destroyed, along with hospitals, police stations and other buildings. He described it as total devastation. So it's going to take an awful lot for Jamaica to get back on its feet.
Yeah, it's relatively early days for that, isn't it? And also getting a true picture of the scale of the damage, the same with Cuba and the same with Haiti. Thomas, thank you very much indeed for the time being. We'll just continue to show you some more of those images from the Caribbean, which is just starting to get a sense of the real devastation that's happened there. It really is terrible. Let's switch focus to another important story this morning. Well, they're all important, of course, but this one has emerged overnight. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has had to say sorry to the Prime Minister for not obtaining the proper licence for renting out her family home. A few minutes ago, her Conservative opposite number, the Shadow Chancellor, Sunil Strai, told us that he thinks her position is untenable. Mari is here now. We should just explain the technicality around this, because you don't need a licence to rent out homes everywhere, but in some parts of London, in some boroughs, you do.
Exactly. So in some boroughs you do, and it's also in some neighbourhoods or some areas you do. So there's lots of different kind of rules and regulations around this. Perhaps it points out a difficulty around the amount of red tape that people have to deal with, and therefore how easy it is to trip up on this kind of stuff. But that's another debate in and of itself. But just to give people a bit of understanding as to what on earth has gone on here. So Rachel Reeves has had to apologise, as you were saying. She said she sincerely apologised for an inadvertent error. So it was originally reported in the Daily Mail, and her home in Dulwich in South London was being rented out because she moved to 11 Downing Street when she became Chancellor, of course. And she's said to have been unaware that she had to get selective licensed in order to rent out this family home. She was using a letting agency. And we understand that she was given no advice that she needed this licence. So it's come to her attention because of these reports in the papers. Now, a spokesperson for Rachel Reeves has said since becoming Chancellor, Rachel Reeves has rented out her home through a letting agency. She's not been made aware of the licensing requirement, but as soon as it was brought to her attention, she took immediate action and has applied for the licence. And then it would go on to say that it was an inadvertent mistake. She's spoken to the Prime Minister, the Independent Advisor on Ministerial Standards, Parliamentary Commission of Standards as well. Now, the Conservative Party, they are saying that they want a full investigation into this, but they're also going a little bit further. We can have a listen to Mel Stride now when you were speaking to you.
I think there should be a proper investigation into what has happened, but the Prime Minister has ruled that out. There was a quick exchange of letters last night to that effect, and I don't think that's appropriate, given that the Prime Minister has always said, stood on the steps of number 10 when he was first elected, that integrity and dignity in office and so on was right at the heart of what he was all about, and I don't think that fits with that, and I don't think it's good enough simply to try and brush it under the carpet in the way that he is. And given where we are at the moment and that there's going to be no proper investigation, I think he needs to do the right thing and accept that her position is not tenable.
So Sky News understands that so far there is no investigation into this. The Prime Minister said that he doesn't believe that further investigation is necessary. He's consulted Sir Laurie Magnus, his personal ethics advisor. The Lib Dems are saying this is adding to a litany of government scandals, and the difficulty for Rachel Reeves, of course, is the amount of times we hear that from Labour when they're in opposition, that lawmakers can't be lawbreakers. That is really the most uncomfortable part of this, despite the fact that actually it was a regulation that she had no idea even existed.
Mari, thank you very much indeed for the time being. The government will be sat there in around about 5 minutes' time. Sarah Jones, the Crime and Policing Minister, will be taking the questions this morning. Before that, though, the US President Donald Trump has met with his Chinese opposite number Xi Jinping in South Korea on the final day of Trump's visits to Asia. Excuse me. It was the first meeting between the pair since Donald Trump imposed global trade tariffs, fueling tensions between Beijing and Washington. Donald Trump has said the US can now sign a trade deal with China pretty soon and confirmed that tariffs on China will come down.
It was an outstanding group of decisions, I think, that was made. A lot of decisions were made, too. There wasn't too much left out there. And we've come to conclusion on many very important points, and we'll be handing that to you in a little while. We're having, because there was a lot of different things, many of them very important.
I think that image froze, but you got a sense of what Donald Trump had to say. Let's talk about this now with our Asia correspondent Helen Ann Smith, who's in Busan in South Korea. Morning to you, Helen Ann. Look, whatever people might think about the individuals concerned, when the two most powerful economies in the world get together, it kind of matters for all of us, doesn't it?
That's absolutely right, and I think there's been a lot of eyes on this meeting in recent weeks, lots of speculation that it might not go ahead at all. And as you say, it matters for the whole world, because since Donald Trump took office for the second time, there's just been this escalating tit-for-tat spat. It's affecting deeply the economies of both countries, and it's affected trade, economies, supply chains and so on all around the world. There was a sense, I think, right from the off, though, that these two men were coming to this meeting with such different styles. Right from the very first handshake, you got that sense. Donald Trump really dominating the space. He was the one leaning in. He was the one doing pretty much all of the talking. He even sort of quipped and joked with reporters that Xi was a tough negotiator, and that wasn't necessarily very good. That didn't raise even so much as an eyebrow from the Chinese president. Totally inscrutable. And I think that just said a lot about the differences differences in the styles between the two. Xi Jinping hates unscripted moments, never really does them. Trump thrives on them. But look, there were some pretty warm words between the two in front of the cameras before the doors closed and they got down to business. And we've started to get a bit of a sense of the things that they've agreed. And there has been some progress on some pretty significant issues. There's been apparently agreements to start the flow of rare earth metals. That's crucially important. These very important elements that are used to make all range of high-tech equipment. China controls the vast majority of the world's supply. America needs that. Agreements for China to buy more soybeans from the US. That will be good for American farmers. Agreements to talk further about the trade of high-tech chips from America. There's been lots of restrictions on those in terms of China buying them. And crucially, an agreement to bring tariffs down as well. Not by a huge amount, by 10%. We're still talking about quite high rates of tariffs on Chinese goods, but that at least is something. They also said as well that Trump plans to visit China next year in April, and that I think is important, just a continuation of these diplomatic channels that really had broken down in recent months. But look, I think if we were to take a few things away, I think they should be this. Firstly, I think there was an agreement, clearly a recognition on both sides that some sort of stabilisation was necessary. The spiralling chaos between them and the economies just wasn't working for each. But I think both wanted to come away having been seen as to not yield. And I think that has been very important. Donald Trump really met his match in Xi Jinping. At no point has he really capitulated in the face of that maximum pressure playbook. He has instead met him eye to eye on that. And therefore, I think going forward, there's nothing necessary to say that there won't be future stumbling blocks and there won't necessarily be sort of moves back from what they've agreed today. But it is some progress.
Sounds like it. Helen Ann in Busan in South Korea, thank you very much indeed. Let's take a look at some of this morning's other stories now. French media is reporting that 5 new suspects have been arrested over the theft of priceless jewellery from the Louvre. Thieves broke into the Apollo Gallery in the famous museum in October the 19th, exposing serious security flaws at the world's most visited museum. The centrist D66 party has made huge gains in the Netherlands elections ahead of Geert Wilders' far-right Freedom Party. The centrist leader, Rob Jetten, is now tipped to become the country's youngest ever Prime Minister. There he is. He is just 38 years old. Former Prime Minister Boris Johnson is warning the Tories will not win the next election by bashing the Green agenda, in his words, describing the current debate on a podcast as depressing. Mr Johnson joins other former Prime Ministers John Major and Theresa May in criticising Kemi Badenoch's wish to repeal the Climate Change Act. A 22-year-old Afghan migrant is due to answer a murder charge in court today after a triple stabbing in West London early this week. Safi Darwood is charged with murdering Wayne Broadhurst in Uxbridge on Monday, as well as 2 counts of attempted murder. Now, more than half of the most sick and disabled children in England who are referred for NHS-funded support don't get it. They get rejected. The support is known as continuing care. It's meant to provide tailored care packages for children who need support to breathe, to eat, to move and to manage their pain. Sky's People and Politics correspondent Nick Martin has been looking into the situation.
And this is where we sleep, isn't it?
Shelley McLean's 11-year-old daughter Missy needs round-the-clock care. She was born with a rare genetic condition that affects her breathing, digestion and movement.
She came home with a tracheostomy, gastrostomy, jejunostomy, which is a breathing tube in her throat, a feeding tube in her stomach and a feeding tube in her bowel. I'm just changing her gastrostomy button and do it as quick as we can.
For a while, Shelley had some NHS-funded nighttime care, but that support was taken away when her local NHS body decided Missy no longer needed it.
I'm not the type of person who wants to ask anyone for help, but it's brought me to my knees. I am very grateful that the NHS saved Missy. She wouldn't be here without them. But they are saving the kids, but they're crippling the parents. Oh, you're going to take pictures?
The care children like Missy need after leaving hospital is called continuing care. It's NHS-funded support for children with the most complex, often life-limiting health needs. For England's sickest children, continuing care depends on where you live. NHS spending on children's continuing care ranges from more than £60 to just 80p per child. And out of nearly 100,000 children living with a life-limiting or life-threatening condition, just 4%, around 4,400, actually receive this kind of funding. More than half of all disabled children referred for NHS continuing care were rejected.
Our research shows there's a huge postcode lottery and they're not following that commitment with money and support for continuing care. And many of these families are basically running kind of little hospitals at home to keep their children well and alive. And they're being let down by continuing care.
NHS Cheshire and Merseyside said all patients are reviewed jointly by health and care professionals to ensure they are receiving the most appropriate care for their needs.
What do you say to some people who say, well, she's getting some help? And in a way, the job of a parent isn't an easy one.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have to fill the gap.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
Come and have a week in my position and try getting, you know, woke up every hour on the hour. If I don't go to her, she could have a fit and she could be dead.
Campaigners are calling on the government to make children's continuing care a legal duty, ensuring fair assessments, proper funding and greater transparency across the country. The government says local NHS care boards are responsible for these decisions.
Okay. All right, okay. It's okay. It's okay.
For now, Shelley finds herself in the gap between the NHS and social care. Full-time mum, full-time nurse, and exhausted. Nick Martin, Sky News.
The Minister for Policing Crime, Sarah Jones, joins me now. I'm a dad, you're a mum. We see what Shelley's having to go through with Missy there. It's heartbreaking, and she's getting no support from the NHS. Why not?
So it is heartbreaking, and I think even if she were getting the support that she needs, it would still be such an amazingly difficult job that she faces.
Yeah.
And I've had my own constituents who I've visited in their homes in similar situations, the strength of parents in these situations who often don't get the support that they need, often have to fight for the support that they need. Now, on this particular case, I don't know the details, but of course I'm going to raise it with ministers.
Yeah.
Of course, the principle here is that we want to be able to look after people in their homes. We don't want people to need to be in hospital, and we want to make sure we are providing the services that people need. Now, I heard the package there and saw the numbers in terms of the struggle that she's had trying to get the support that she needs.
Yeah.
I will raise that with ministers, and of course, we are putting more money into our health service for exactly these reasons.
I appreciate it's not your particular brief, but when you do raise it, it might be worth mentioning there is no mention of NHS continuing care for Missy and other very sick children like her in the NHS 10-year plan. It feels like, and it certainly does to people like Shelley and all the other parents trying to cope with this, that they've been forgotten about, ignored.
Well, I'm not going to deny that there isn't, I think, and there has grown up over the years, a mismatch between what the local authority is doing, what the health service is doing. These organisations need to come together, work together to provide the right care. And the whole premise of our NHS reforms is we want to move that care into our communities, which is where people want to be. But we have to make sure we're providing the right support for people. And, you know, I have seen cases, I'm afraid, that are similar over the years as a Member of Parliament in Croydon.
Yeah.
And of course, this is what we want to fix. And investing in our health service has to be a choice that we make. We can't go back to the austerity years. We have to make that active choice, however we can do it, to make sure we're investing in our health service.
Appreciate you answering that, given that you've only just seen Nick's report there. Moving on, do you think the government has the requisite attention to detail to run our lives? Are you looking at the details properly? Because we see, once again, a government minister, this time in the form of the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, missing the rules when it comes to dealing with property. What do you make of that?
Well, of course, when we won the election, the Chancellor moved into 11 Downing Street, as Chancellors do. She had a property, her family home in Southwark, which she went to a letting agency, she let out.
For more than £3,000 a month, let's just be clear.
In Southwark, they have a selective licensing scheme, landlord licensing scheme. Some boroughs have it, some don't. We used to have one in Croydon, we don't have one now, we're getting another one. So these things change. She wasn't aware that she had to apply. As soon as she became aware, she rectified the situation and she applied.
Yeah.
And she told the Prime Minister, she told the authorities in Parliament, and she put it right.
The precedent for not knowing the rules around your personal property situation as a government minister was set by Angela Rayner, wasn't it? Deputy Prime Minister lost her job, now sits on the back benches. Should the same happen to Rachel Reeves?
Well, Rachel wrote to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has responded, and in that letter he set out that he talked to the ethics advisor, his ethics advisor, as he has done in other cases, and that the ethics advisor advised that because she had made a mistake, put it right, acted quickly, that there was no further case, as it were, and that was the end of the matter.
Because there was an investigation into Angela Rayner's conduct, and it became apparent that she'd made mistakes, and she went. Whatever the ethics advisor advises, this looks like a howler of a mistake. She's the Chancellor. She should know what the rules are, shouldn't she?
But you say whatever the ethics advisor advises doesn't matter.
I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but surely the Tories may be right in asking for an investigation into this.
I think the Prime Minister's been really clear that when something comes to his attention, he needs to make sure the right advice and the right response is given. It's how you respond that matters. He has gone to the ethics advisor, who has advised that there is no further sort of case to answer, as it were, because she rectified the situation.
So you have faith in her?
So I have faith in her 100%, yeah.
OK. When it comes to attention to detail, I think the other thing you want to talk about this morning is getting knife crime down. The authorities have seized a lot more knives beyond stop and search. I take that into account. I think knife murders are down by about 10%.
18%.
Beg your pardon, 18%. And people turning up to hospital with knife-related injuries also down. But you're talking about this in a week where Wayne Broadhurst, a 49-year-old binman from Uxbridge in West London, has lost his life as a result of a stabbing. Two others, including a 14-year-old boy, were injured in that stabbing. Afghan migrant, where's his name now, Safi Dawood, is appearing in court today over this. Is your attention to detail good enough announcing this in the week that that has happened?
The reason this government has committed to halve knife crime is because too many people are being murdered from knife crime.
Literally this week?
Literally most weeks. And that is why we have a commitment to halve knife crime. Now, we have done some good work in this last year because we are investing in our police. We have removed 60,000 knives from the streets. That is lives saved. We have cut knife crime overall. We've cut knife-enabled robbery, really nasty crime is down. We have targeted county lines, again, really nasty criminal thugs who exploit children to run drugs across the country. Knife crime there is down. We are moving in the right direction. Now, is that enough? 100% no. And what's happened this week has proved that. But I have campaigned since I became an MP in 2017 on knife crime. We saw the numbers soaring. They went down during COVID for obvious reasons. People were indoors. They've been rocketing since. So we have turned around an upward trajectory over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's on its way down. Is that enough? No, of course. And of course we're thinking of the family of the man who lost his life and the people who love him dearly.
Just out walking his dog.
Just out walking his dog. And we have seen cases like this before, and we will see them again. But we must, as a government, and we are doing the moral thing here of making a choice about where we put public money, how we invest that money, and it is beginning to show progress, and I am grateful for that.
The man appearing in court today facing these charges is an Afghan national who was given leave to remain. Talking of other people who come to this country and then, in other cases, been told to leave, let's talk about Hadish Gabatu just finally. Not only was he forcibly removed, he was given 500 quid to go. Why was he given money to go? Why can't they just forcibly remove him?
So it sticks in the throat, right? I get that.
Of course it does, for a lot of people.
It does for me, it does for most people, I would say.
So it shouldn't happen?
So just let me explain.
Yeah.
When we remove people, and we are removing more foreign national offenders than the previous government by some margin, 5,000 of them have been removed.
Not more than the number coming in, though, right?
5,000 foreign national offenders have been removed under this government. That's a 14% increase on what was happening previously. We do not spend taxpayers' money on military planes or private planes. We put these offenders on normal flights with normal people going on holiday or going to visit their relatives. We have to make sure that's done in a safe way, which is why he had people with him. But if he was to choose to kick off on a plane, we'd have to take him off that plane, because that plane is not our plane. It is a commercial flight that is going off with other passengers in it. If we had... if he had been removed from that plane, we'd have to put him back in custody, book more flights. £10,000 at least we would have spent on top.
Okay.
So the officials there at the time, the operatives, made that choice that it was better to get him out of our country, for which I think we're all grateful, and get him on that plane. And that was the choice. Galling though that is, I hope people understand that that was the choice they faced, and that was the right thing to do.
Sarah Jones, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
You're watching Breakfast here on Sky News. Coming up, we'll have much more on the situation in the Caribbean as it develops regarding the devastation wreaked by Hurricane Melissa.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
What country are you
from? The UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
You're watching Breakfast here on Sky News. The top stories this morning: at least 30 people are known to have been killed by Hurricane Melissa in the Caribbean, but that number is expected to rise as emergency workers begin to try to reach communities where almost nothing is left standing. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has apologised to Prime Minister Keir Starmer for what she calls her inadvertent error in not obtaining the proper licence for renting out her family home in London. The Conservatives believe her position is no longer tenable and think she should resign. 5 new suspects have been arrested over the theft of priceless jewellery from the Louvre in Paris. Thieves broke into the museum back on October the 19th, exposing serious security flaws. Thomas is back with me now for more on Hurricane Melissa and the devastation it's wreaked. The picture is slowly starting to emerge. We know 30 people have been killed across the Caribbean as a result of this, especially in Haiti as well, where flooding took lives and injured people as well. But really, it's going to take a long time for the true picture to emerge, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, you can see there roads blocked by trees, and that's going to be the picture across the western half of the island. A lot of roads will be severely damaged by landslides and possibly rivers that have burst their banks too. But Andrew Holness, the Prime Minister, described how he saw 80 to 90% of houses without roofs, that they'd been destroyed. He described total devastation, hospitals, police stations that had been really turned to rubble. So this is going to be quite serious. And when you start trying to put some numbers on this too, Enki Research has done some preliminary analysis of what the economy is now facing. It says that there's been £5.8 billion worth of damage to physical assets. That's more than a third of Jamaica's GDP. And we're talking there damage to homes and businesses, disruption to commerce and supply chains, tourism losses and so on. 400,000 people have been affected by Melissa.
Thomas, thank you very much indeed for the time being. As the picture develops there regarding Jamaica and Cuba and Haiti and those other countries, the Bahamas, I think, has suffered as well to a degree. We will bring you more on that as we get it. Next, though, more than half of the most sick and disabled children in England referred for NHS-funded support have been rejected. The support is known as continuing care. It provides tailored care packages for children who need support to breathe, eat, move and manage their pain. Earlier in the hour, of course, we saw the situation with Missy and her mum, Shelley, struggling to cope. Joining me now is Emeritus Professor of Law and Social Justice at the University of Leeds, Luke Clements. Luke, it's good to see you. Tell us the situation as you see it with this care that clearly so many children and families desperately need.
What I should say is to thank you for covering this and, congratulate Contact for the research. I mean, what strikes me, and we're in with our research daily contact with families, is the humanity with which families care for profoundly disabled children with life-limiting conditions, and the inhumanity with which some and quite a significant number of NHS organisations deal with those families, utterly budget-driven and causing incalculable trauma to the families. You know, it's not a particularly expensive issue. It's just that you have very vulnerable families and they're deciding to cut their budgets because the government has told them to save money, not cut budgets, but save money, not cut services.
Yeah. Luke, it is also quite the postcode lottery. Now, we talk about that with NHS care all the time, and of course, that care varies in Wales and Northern Ireland and Scotland as well, but focusing on England, it is so stark that in some areas, looks like on the south coast there, southwest, £61.37 is spent per child. But you look at, I think we're talking sort of Essex, London borders area, 80p per child is spent. And across the board, there's almost 100,000 children that need this kind of support. So we're not talking children who might be able to cope in other ways. We're talking children like Missy, who we saw, who have breathing difficulties. They need full-time care. And it is really taking its toll on mums and dads.
Yes, I mean, it is traumatising just sort of dealing with these cases and realising that politicians don't really understand it. It's quite a complex area and it historically hasn't got into the media. It's a small issue in terms of the problems governments have, But unfortunately, it's allowing local budget holders in the NHS to make decisions, and they are totally budget driven to meet a target, rather than having some basic humanity and seeing what's happening to these families, you know, that you have covered. It's just heartbreaking, and it's completely unnecessary. Largely, it's to do with personalities. It's to do with certain budget holders in certain regions just slavishly looking at their budget and not having the sort of humanity we would expect somebody in the NHS to have.
But Luke, let me sort of come back to that, because there is no mention of NHS continuing care for sick children in the NHS's 10-year plan. There may well be people watching who are holding those purse strings, who have as much empathy as any of us. You know, if you're a parent especially, I look at Missy there, I think of my own daughters and how fortunate I am and how difficult it must be. I'm sure plenty of people feel the same, but they feel probably like their hands are tied behind their back because this is not part of the plan. I mean, I'll ask you the same question I asked the government minister. Do you think it's just been forgotten about, swept under the carpet, ignored?
Yeah, I mean, there's an awful lot of stuff in the NHS that isn't in the NHS plan. Palliative care isn't in the NHS plan. There's whole swathes of things within the NHS which, you know, costs £200 billion, which is not named individually. So one would hope that people are looking not at an Excel spreadsheet, but basic ethics and humanity and kindness, and looking at these families and saying this is intolerable. And it's not, you know, it's nothing like the cost of in-house hospital treatment. These are small figures on a big spreadsheet, and they're cut because there are budget holders that are out of control, really, to be honest.
Luke, really appreciate your time. We are expecting to hear more from the government on their strategy for dealing with children more generally in the next month. And of course, the budget comes at the end of November as well. For the time being, Professor Luke Clements of Leeds University, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now, if polling is to be believed, it suggests reform could oust Labour and the Conservatives to become the official opposition to the Scottish National Party in next year's parliamentary elections in Scotland. Sky News has been given rare and exclusive access inside reform. In fact, our correspondent, who we'll see in a second, got inside a branch meeting in Glasgow with members who discussed things like migrant deportation camps and Sharia law. Conor Gillis went to have a look.
Behind this door, a political movement that rarely lets cameras in.
Thank you all for coming along.
A meeting organised on encrypted chats at a secret location in Glasgow.
We are polling now second place.
After 10 months of asking, Reform UK gives Sky News exclusive access to see inside a party where politics comes with a pint.
There's a lot of homeless Scots that aren't getting a bed or a homeless accommodation because to suit the migrants. Nails first, I think.
What about just here? And this ex-Labour politician who quit amid claims of racism now represents Reform.
Sharia law, for instance, they're trying to bring that here. That's not something we celebrate.
Who's bringing that here?
The asylum seekers, some of the asylum seekers, the legal migrants.
They're trying to bring Sharia law?
Yes.
Where's that at?
Well, do you not have conversations in the street?
So the asylum seekers are trying to bring Sharia law to the streets of Glasgow?
Absolutely. You just have to take a walk through Glasgow city centre any given day. And I think probably the line of questioning that you have, if you're so shocked by this, you'd be even more shocked at what you find.
I'm just asking genuine questions because, you know, if councillors and elected officials are going to make those statements, surely it needs to be corroborated and substantiated.
There is stacks of evidence online.
Police say Sharia law is not being enforced. But language, once on the margins, is edging into the mainstream. Meet Fatin, past vetting and hoping to stand for Holyrood. Would you deport anyone?
For illegal immigration, yes. Yes. Put them in camps and deport them if they don't really, they shouldn't be here.
You want to set up deportation camps in the UK?
Well, why not? Other countries has done it.
Where would you set them up?
Well, that is really for the government to decide.
Well, no, you suggested it, so where would you set them up?
Yeah, see, if it's coming from via France and whatever, it'll be in that side of the country.
So the deportation camps wouldn't be here in the UK? They'd be in France?
No, it will be in the UK because the boats are coming to us.
Are you making this up as you go along?
Making what up?
Policies on the hoof? Deportation camps?
Not really.
It's looking good, like we are not complacent.
Off script or not, these are the voices shaping a group sniffing success.
The vetting procedure that we put in place as a party is absolutely vigorous.
There's maybe a sense from some that they're making policy up on the hoof. Is that a problem that you have to tackle?
It's a problem that we're working with now.
But the Scottish First Minister isn't convinced.
I'm very concerned to hear what you've shared with me. Sharia law is not taken over Scotland, and I find the idea of deportation camps just utterly repugnant.
People who support him then, are they also repulsive?
Well, I'm simply saying I find his politics repulsive, and people have got their choices to make.
Polls are suggesting here in Scotland Nigel Farage's party could be on course to form the official opposition at the Scottish Parliament next year.
And is that likely to happen?
It is remarkable that a party that in the British-wide polls was running at 6-7% in the autumn of 2023 is a serious competitor for becoming the principal opposition party at Holyrood.
Once fringe, now frontline, reform is breaking through and could rewrite Scotland's story. Conor Gillis, Sky News.
This is Breakfast from Sky News. Coming up after the break, the Royal British Legion's London Poppy Day is launching at Waterloo Station. I'll be joined by the man formerly known as Judge Rinder, Rob Rinder, to talk about that.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay. Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
People that pod together, they have a little hive brain going on.
They've not had a good week.
I've had a good week.
There's a teaser there, a teaser.
Okay, nothing to see here. Drama over. Full stop. Anyway, we'll get to that. She will be mortified.
She's the first female Chancellor. I popped upstairs, made myself a cheese sandwich, and now I'm with you.
Annalise has come dressed in the magenta of electoral dysfunction. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Now, the flagship fundraising event for the Royal British Legion's annual Poppy Appeal is getting underway in London this morning. Rob Rinder is launching this year's event at Waterloo Station, and the Royal Marines are going to abseil there as well. Rob, it's really good to see you. I don't know if you're going to abseil, leave that to maybe the experts, but tell us why you are there and why you're involved.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us, Matt. You can probably hear the band of the Army going past. I'm here today wearing my red poppy very proudly because a poppy with the Royal British Legion is a symbol of remembrance, but also of gratitude. Gratitude for our greatest generation, but also the amazing men and women that serve in our armed forces. And you know, they come from across our shared nation, from every single background. They're prepared to lay down their lives, to risk their lives to keep us safe. And you know, nowadays, more than ever, we need kind of conversations and examples of service, and what better way to celebrate, to demonstrate the type of great British service than across our armed forces. Those who lay down their lives in the past to keep us free, and those who continue to do so. So I wear this proudly, and I know people from across our country in London today are going to be doing the same thing.
Rob, really appreciate you telling us that important message while the band was in full flow behind you. I think they've paused just for the time being to do us a favour, but well handled nonetheless. People will see the poppy every year, see a lot of people wearing it, but do you think there are still some, perhaps some in the younger generation, who don't necessarily know what it represents and why you think it's important?
That's exactly right. And the younger generation, increasingly, I have to say, I'm more optimistic than perhaps others. You know, they see people wearing a red poppy and they want to ask questions. And when people meet members of the armed services, they see those in communities wearing a red poppy. What is the question that young people have to think about and understand? And it's that this democracy that we have, that we're gifted with, that freedoms that we take for granted under the rule of law are fragile. And we know that perhaps now more than ever. And wearing this red poppy celebrates those who lay down their lives to gift us those freedoms. And I think young people want to commemorate that. They want to understand that. But also, I think they want to celebrate our armed forces as well. And too often we speak our young people down, whereas when you give them the story, when you remind them just how important it is, and so many of the things that they care about had to be earned, had to be fought for by the greatest generation, and they continue to be safeguarded by those in the armed forces, they'll wear one of these proudly. We just need to make sure that that story is sung across schools, across young people. And I have to say, you see it this morning from every community and every background. Young people approach, they ask questions, and when you can give them that answer, when you can tell them that they should be proud of this country, and this is a way of demonstrating it in the best possible way, they're always delighted to be on board.
And the symbol itself is a reminder of those red poppies that grow on the fields of Flanders, of course, where the First World War was fought. Listen, Rob, what do you say to some people who don't feel they want to wear the poppy because of its inevitable relationship with conflict and war? You see some people, for example, at this time of the year wearing a white poppy to signify peace, for example. Do you have an understanding of why people feel that way about it sometimes?
Yeah, well, there were, as you know, in the First World War, conscientious objectors who either didn't serve or decided to take serious risks and be stretcher bearers, etc. That distracts perhaps from the most important thing, which is that most people, I think, are really interested in being alongside our armed forces. That you can express gratitude and understand that it took courage, it took the most important thing, the preparedness to be able to sacrifice, to serve, and you can celebrate those values, the values that sing in our armed forces, without saying anything political, big or small p, whatsoever. And that's what this represents. And to those out there that are a bit worried or nervous about wearing them, just think about what this symbol means. Those who laid down their lives, as you describe, in Flanders and wars across the world that have been fought, think of the Second World War, in circumstances and again up against a backdrop where we were preserving, protecting and defending our shared freedoms. And those freedoms had to be hard won. And also our armed service now, they represent the best of British values. So I think that you can wear a poppy and celebrate that regardless of your politics, regardless of your background.
Rob, really appreciate you joining us this morning. Look, I see you in a train station, and normally
Matt.
I think you're going to jump on a train and go somewhere with Ryland, but clearly you're there for a very important reason today. Really appreciate you joining us from Waterloo this morning.
Well, thanks, Matt, and good morning to everybody. Please get a poppy and celebrate our armed forces, past and present.
Thank you very much, Rob. Good to see you. Back in the studio, Mari is here right now. Just a reminder of the top political story this morning, which is a little bit of pressure, certainly coming from the Tories, Mari, on Rachel Reeves, because she rented out a house in Southwark in London where she needed a licence and didn't have one. And Kemi Badenoch has been talking about this online.
Yeah, absolutely. So Kemi Badenoch, the leader of the Conservative Party, she has tweeted her reaction to this. She said Rachel Reeves was celebrating the renting law being expanded in her constituency. At the same time, she was breaking that law with her own house, claiming that she wasn't aware of these laws is about as credible as her CV. That's a reference to an
what she did at
story.
the Bank of England when she worked there.
Exactly. Yeah. And so now the Conservatives are really making hay of this. We know Mel Stride's already said her position is not tenable. They're calling for a full investigation into this, and it's slightly uncomfortable for the Chancellor.
Yes, the Labour pointing to the advice from the Prime Minister's own ethics advisor, who's advised no full investigation necessary, which is what the Tories want. Mari, thank you very much indeed for the time being. You're watching Breakfast here on Sky News. Mari and I will be back with the latest after this short break.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning, this is Breakfast on Sky News. It is 8 o'clock. In this hour, at least 30 people have died after one of the strongest hurricanes ever to hit the Caribbean.
Plus, the Conservatives call for Rachel Reeves to quit as Chancellor because she broke the rules by renting out her London home without a licence.
It is Thursday, October the 30th. Hurricane Melissa carves a trail of devastation through the Caribbean. As the picture emerges, the authorities there say they don't yet know how many people might have died and desperately need help to support those who survived. Also this hour, Keir Starmer accepts an apology from Chancellor Rachel Reeves, who says she didn't know that she needed a licence to rent out her London home.
Given where we are at the moment and that there's going to be no proper investigation, I think he needs to do the right thing and accept that her position is not tenable.
In Paris, the public prosecutor confirms 5 new suspects have been arrested over the robbery at the Louvre, but still no recovery of the stolen jewels. We also hear from a mum who faces a nightly battle to keep her daughter alive, yet with no help from the NHS. Good morning. At least 30 people are now known to have been killed by one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes ever recorded. But that number is expected to rise by the authorities as emergency workers start to reach those communities where almost nothing is left standing. Hurricane Melissa tore across the Caribbean, bringing sustained winds of 185 miles per hour, a huge storm surge and floods in Jamaica, in Haiti, in Cuba and elsewhere. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner has more now.
Hurricane Melissa tore through the heart of this island. The region known as Jamaica's breadbasket for its crop growing is hardest hit. A seemingly endless trail of destruction.
October 2025, the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. It has been devastating.
It's a date and a day nobody here will forget. The aftermath of the strongest storm to hit Jamaica since records began. People here were still rebuilding from Hurricane Beryl, which caused widespread damage last year, but this is much worse. The hurricane also pummeled parts of Cuba. Haiti escaped a direct hit, but wasn't spared. Scores of people losing their lives from flooding.
I had 4 children at home, a 1-month-old baby, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old and another who was about to turn 4. All 4 are gone.
Jamaica's Prime Minister surveyed the disaster zone. Authorities say the country's healthcare system is in crisis too. Not hard to see why, when this is the main hospital in the area. The roof was ripped off here, and at another hospital nearby too. Yet nurses continued to treat patients even as the storm raged.
Even after the storm, we have emergencies, using lanterns and flashlights, but God has been good to us.
The town of Black River was shredded by wind. Here it is before Melissa and after. A closer look at the main street shows previously colourful homes, restaurants and bars now rubble. The roof just taken clean off there.
It's gone. Yeah, it peeled off.
Nikki's house was directly in the hurricane's path. She hunkered in the garage as it hit.
When it really started kicking, it was truly scary. The building was shaking. The windows were bowing in despite the shutters, the hurricane shutters. Water was coming in under the door, and it was just this most unearthly noise. It's not a howling. It's almost like an express train.
How difficult is the recovery going to be for some of these places?
Unimaginable. Jamaica has never had a storm of this intensity, this strength, and a lot of people didn't take it as seriously as they should have. It's just about as bad as it could have got.
With roads blocked, emergency services struggled to reach the worst affected areas, even with the help of Good Samaritans.
A little bit of a waterfall in here right now.
Around 25,000 tourists are still stuck on the island. Most rode out the storm in hotels, some of which were also badly damaged. But a message of resilience is echoing across Jamaica.
Oh, the fact of the matter is that this won't be the first and the last hurricane that we've experienced. We had a major Cat 4 37 years ago and one 37 years before that. So we've been experiencing this for decades, and we become more experienced and more resilient. And it's time now for the government and the world to come to the assistance, and let's get Jamaica back on track in the shortest possible time.
The US is sending urban rescue and disaster relief teams to the Caribbean. Finding any survivors and preventing the spread of disease will be their first job. Martha Kellner, Sky News.
Thomas Moore, our science correspondent, is back now, and I know you've been keeping an eye on this since it became a possibility, Hurricane Melissa, and the devastation it has wrought on the region. It's really obvious when we look at those before and after pictures in particular.
Absolutely. I mean, it has been very difficult to get images of what has been left behind by Melissa, but they are coming out now, both from when the Prime Minister took a tour on a helicopter, but also with these satellite images that we're looking at now. This is Black River, a town on the southwest coast of Jamaica that bore the brunt of the eye of the storm as it rattled through with those 185-mile-an-hour winds. And you can see that was before and now after. And the houses that were on the beachfront there completely destroyed and going back a long way. And this is the commercial hub. You're looking at big structures there. See the big white building in the middle there, and to the right another one. That's the fire station.
Right.
And above that, the police station. Take a look now what happened to those. Completely razed to the ground.
Gone.
I mean, quite extraordinary what has happened there. And there's water inundation too, the storm surge that would have been pushed ahead by these winds. And have we got any more? Perhaps we have. Yeah, that's also... is that also Black River? These are coming from satellite images. That was before and now afterwards. We've got another after picture there. You can more see damage. And when you look at some more from Montego Bay, which is on the northwest coast, that's a resort town, but the port there too has been completely wiped out, inundated with water rather, again from the storm surge, the oil terminal underwater and so on. Now, preliminary analysis by Enki Research, they've tried to put some numbers on the damage, and they say that the cost to physical assets is £5.8 billion. That's 37% of Jamaica's GDP. And that includes the damage to homes and businesses, disruption to commerce and supply chains, the tourism losses that will be inevitable because of this, because it's going to be very difficult to accommodate people who thought they were going to be coming on holiday. And then, of course, the costs from power outages as well. So it is going to take a lot to get Jamaica back on its feet.
I just want to point out that those satellite images we're using for the before and after come from a company called Vanta. We trust those. They are authentic. And I'm saying that because there's been a lot of imagery online purporting to be showing Black River, that community in Jamaica, and the devastation wrought on it, which are completely false. People have checked, they're AI generated and not showing a true picture. So, look, just a reminder, it's important to question what you're looking at, especially if you're seeing it on social media, people claiming that it shows devastation when it shows nothing of the sort. Thomas, back to you. When it does come to the broader, true picture of devastation, it seems to be very early days. We know 30 people have been killed. We heard that a couple of dozen, sadly, in Haiti had lost their lives in flooding there. In Haiti, a country that's really been struggling for decades now with rampant poverty and earthquakes, and natural disasters seem to afflict that place in several ways. But we do know the authorities are fearful, almost certainly, that more people have died than they know at the moment.
Yes, we heard from the Prime Minister when he went over this area that he saw 80 to 90% of roofs have been destroyed. There were also some people standing on roofs trying to get away from water and so on. So I think that there is going to be a phenomenal amount of destruction, devastation. It's going to take a while for people to actually reach them by land to see that for themselves.
Yeah, Thomas, thank you very much indeed for the time being. Just show you a few more of these images. These are posted by the Jamaican Premier Andrew Holness on his social media account. Just getting more of a sense of the damage to his country of Jamaica. And at one point, it may well have improved now, but certainly, well, you can see the telegraph poles down there. At one point, more than 3/4 of the island of Jamaica was without power, making it difficult for the people who survived and difficult for those who want to help them getting to those communities. And again, these before and after pictures just don't cease to be jaw-dropping in showing the intensity of Melissa as it tore through these communities. Really terrible situation there in Jamaica and other countries in the Caribbean. Well, back here, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has apologised to the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, because she didn't obtain the proper licence to rent out her family home in London. A Conservative opposite number, Simone Stride, told me earlier on that he thinks her position is now not tenable. Mari is here now. Mari, just explain to people why this family home needed to be let out with a licence when Rachel Reeves and her family moved into number 11 Downing Street.
So Rachel Reeves' family home in Dulwich, she was renting it out because she was moving into number 11, as you were saying, when she became Chancellor. Now, it depends on the council, depends on the area, but there are scenarios in which you need a specific licence in order to rent out your home. And this house is in one of those areas. So Rachel Reeves has been renting her house out without actually fully complying with all the rules. And this was first reported actually in the papers, in the Daily Mail. She's now had to apologise, so she said she sincerely apologised for an inadvertent error, and that she was unaware that she had to get this selective licence. Now, what was really interesting was we had Angela Rayner having to step down because of not paying stamp duty or on property taxes to do with a trust that she'd set up. Now we've got the Chancellor breaking the rules when it comes to renting out her home as well. And the Tories are trying to say, actually, perhaps it's time for her to go. But we can have a listen to Sarah Jones, who you were speaking to, Government Minister, explaining and defending Rachel Reeves, and then also Mel Stride on the other side of the argument saying it's time for her to go.
Yeah.
The Prime Minister's been really clear that when something comes to his attention, he needs to make sure the right advice and the right response is given. It's how you respond that matters. He has gone to the ethics advisor, who has advised that there is no further sort of case to answer, as it were, because she rectified the situation.
So you have faith in her?
So I have faith in her 100%, yeah.
I think there should be a proper investigation into what has happened, but the Prime Minister has ruled that out. There was a quick exchange of letters last night to that effect, and I don't think that's appropriate, given that the Prime Minister has always said, stood on the steps of number 10 when he was first elected, that integrity and dignity in office and so on was right at the heart of what he was all about, and I don't think that fits with that, and I don't think it's good enough simply to try and brush it under the carpet in the way that he is. And given where we are at the moment and that there's going to be no proper investigation, I think he needs to do the right thing and accept that her position is not tenable.
You know, Mari, there's a couple of ways of looking at this, isn't there? You know, some of these things can be complicated. You don't need a licence in a lot of places to rent out a house. The letting agency perhaps should have let Rachel Reeves know. That's being kind. If you're not being kind, you would say, well, look at what happened with Angela Rayner. Surely you do some sort of personal audit to make sure you're absolutely compliant by the rules, especially when you're the Chancellor, especially when you're meant to have an eye for detail, and especially when you don't want to give the Conservatives and others any ammunition. But that's what's happened.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happened. And it's something that, you know, Labour appear to be tripping up again and again on regulations, on red tape. And I think the difficulties, it raises questions also, in a kind of wider sense, about whether there is perhaps too much red tape in some of these areas, and that's why they keep tripping up rules that they didn't know existed time and time again.
Yeah, but you know there'll be people watching who's fallen foul of these rules and been punished accordingly and say, hang on,
what about
I
me?
didn't get a pass necessarily. No ethics advisor said I didn't need to be investigated. And they'll be wondering why this hasn't happened. This one seems like it's going to rumble on for a little bit longer yet, Mari. Thank you very much indeed for the time being. To Paris now, where the public prosecutors confirm that 5 more arrests have been made in connection to the brazen break-in at the Louvre Museum earlier this month. There are the pictures of the thieves coming down that lift that they actually rented from a town called Louvre, perhaps coincidentally. But now yet more arrests. Amelia is here to discuss this. Tell us more, Amelia, about what's happened this morning.
Well, this morning we've had 5 new arrests, Matt, in connection with this audacious heist at the world's most famous museum. We're hearing from the French prosecutor that this happened at 9 p.m. last night, local time. Most of the arrests were in the Seine-Saint-Denis area, which is an area just northeast of Paris. And the French prosecutors said that DNA linked one of them to the robbery, suggesting that one of those arrested is alleged to be one of what have been called the 4 commandos involved in the robbery itself. And this comes on top of the 2 arrests that were made last week. That we're looking at is the window that they broke in through. One of those men that was arrested last week was arrested at Charles de Gaulle Airport, preparing to leave the country. At a news conference yesterday, we heard that the 2 suspects have partially confessed to their involvement in the robbery. So this news this morning about the 5 further arrests takes the total number of people arrested to 7.
Yep.
Matt, this is being called the theft of the decade. It took them less than 8 minutes to steal around £76 million worth of jewellery. This happened on the 19th of October. There we go. That was the escape route that they used. At 9:30 in the morning, this daylight robbery, they broke into a gallery containing French crown jewels. They used a motorised ladder that we're looking at here to access the first floor. 9 of the objects were taken, but only 8 were actually stolen because when the gang fled, they fled on motorbikes and they dropped one of the items. This, of course, has been a huge story here, but also, of course, in France. And we heard from a security worker. They spoke to Sky News after what happened. And they said that they had been warning repeatedly about security. They said that they had obsolete equipment and they'd experienced a drastic cut in staff, which was making their job fundamentally more difficult. We are currently, or the French police are currently in a race against time to recover the jewels for fear they will be being broken up or the gold and precious metals melted down.
Yes, a few days have passed, though, since then, haven't
Yeah.
they? I can understand why they'd be afraid of that. Amelia, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Let's take a quick look now at some of this morning's other stories. In the Netherlands, the centrist D66 party has made huge gains in the country's election. That's ahead of Geert Wilders' far-right Freedom Party. That's Geert Wilders there. The centrist leader, Rob Jetten, there he is now tipped to become the country's youngest ever Prime Minister at the age of just 38. Our former Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, is warning that the Tories won't win the next election by, in his words, bashing the Green agenda, describing the current debate on a podcast as depressing. Boris Johnson joins other former party leaders, other former Prime Ministers, in fact, in John Major and Theresa May, in criticising Kemi Badenoch's wish to repeal the Climate Change Act. A 22-year-old Afghan immigrant is due to answer a murder charge in court later today after a triple stabbing in West London. Safi Darwood has been charged with murdering Wayne Broadhurst in Uxbridge on Monday, as well as 2 counts of attempted murder. More than half of the most sick and disabled children in England who are referred for NHS-funded support have been rejected for it. The support's known as continuing care. It's meant to provide tailored care packages for kids who need support to breathe, to eat, to move, to manage their pain. Sky's People and Politics correspondent Nick Martin has been taking a close look at the issue.
And this is where we sleep, isn't it?
Shelley McLean's 11-year-old daughter Missy needs round-the-clock care. She was born with a rare genetic condition that affects her breathing, digestion and movement.
She came home with a tracheostomy, gastrostomy, jejunostomy, which is a breathing tube in her throat, a feeding tube in her stomach and a feeding tube in her bowel. I'm just changing her gastrostomy button and do it as quick as we can.
For a while, Shelley had some NHS-funded nighttime care, but that support was taken away when her local NHS body decided Missy no longer needed it.
I'm not the type of person who wants to ask anyone for help, but it's brought me to my knees. I am very grateful that the NHS saved Missy. She wouldn't be here without them. But they are saving the kids, but they're crippling the parents. Oh, you're going to take pictures?
The care children like Missy need after leaving hospital is called continuing care. It's NHS-funded support for children with the most complex, often life-limiting health needs. For England's sickest children, continuing care depends on where you live. NHS spending on children's continuing care ranges from more than £60 to just 80 pence per child. And out of nearly 100,000 children living with a life-limiting or life-threatening condition, just 4%, around 4,400, actually receive this kind of funding. More than half of all disabled children referred for NHS continuing care were rejected.
Our research shows there's a huge postcode lottery and they're not following that commitment with money and support for continuing care. And many of these families are basically running kind of little hospitals at home to keep their children well and alive. And they're being let down by continuing care.
NHS Cheshire and Merseyside said all patients are reviewed jointly by health and care professionals to ensure they are receiving the most appropriate care for their needs.
What do you say to some people who say, well, she's getting some help? And in a way, the job of a parent isn't an easy one.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have to fill the gap.
Yeah.
What do you say to that?
Come and have a week in my position and try getting, you know, woke up every hour on the hour. If I don't go to her, she could have a fit and she could be dead.
Campaigners are calling on the government to make children's continuing care a legal duty, ensuring fair assessments, proper funding and greater transparency across the country. The government says local NHS care boards are responsible for these decisions.
Okay. All right, okay. It's okay. It's okay.
For now, Shelley finds herself in the gap between the NHS and social care. Full-time mum, full-time nurse, and exhausted. Nick Martin, Sky News.
That's Missy and Shelley there, are really struggling to deal with that situation. Turning attention now to the Caribbean, and the UK-based disaster relief charity Shelterbox is preparing to respond to the destruction left in the wake of Hurricane Melissa. The picture's not really showing the true scale of the devastation there in Jamaica yet. Sanj Srikantan is the chief executive of Shelterbox and joins me now. Sanj, good to see you. What's the plan then in trying to help?
Well, the first thing is to get on the ground and find out where the most vulnerable and most needy are and prioritize them first. So there's a sort of hierarchy because there's never enough aid to go around, and Jamaica won't be any different to any other hurricane that we've responded to. I think the other thing that's happening simultaneously is, of course, making sure everyone is safe, no one's trapped or injured in damaged buildings or destroyed buildings. And then I think the third thing will be trying to get people back on their feet, livelihoods, food, because much of the area that's been impacted by this is the breadbasket of Jamaica around St. Elizabeth. So there's a lot of work to do, but we've been there before. So we hope to work really effectively with the Jamaican government and other charities, all responding together.
This was one of the strongest, most powerful hurricanes to ever hit the Caribbean. Some of those winds in the eye of the storm surging north of 200 miles per hour. It really is hard to imagine. So with that in mind, Sanj, does this make your life even more difficult this time around? I appreciate you and Shelterbox have got experience here, but are you expecting this to be even harder as a result?
Well, it is on the very high end of hurricanes, and particularly for Jamaica, they haven't seen anything like this in decades. The winds have gone. That's what the people of Jamaica had to live through that night. But the flooding and the landslides and the blocked roads and the loss of communications across much of the island are the things that are going to now hamper saving lives and providing relief. So those are the things that we typically deal with. And it's clear that in Jamaica, we're going to be dealing with this again. The good news is we've again been there before. We have ways around it, satellite communications, and also great local contacts. We partner with the Rotary International community to work with clubs who know where the needs are greatest. So we have advantages, but I think the water is what we now face as the biggest challenge, with surging storm levels still and flood landslides, which can still kill.
Sandra, let me ask you, I don't know if you have friends and family in the region, but of course many people in Britain certainly have a big Jamaican expat community and people with Jamaican heritage and relatives and that kind of thing. Are you seeing people get in touch because they want to lend their support too?
The support we've been getting already in the short time since the event has been really phenomenal, but it's dwarfed by what we're seeing as the level of destruction on the ground. I think with disasters like this caused by weather, there's always a high level of support we see, because I think people in this country recognize it could happen to us. We're just geographically not in the place for hurricanes this severe. So I think there's a great deal of sympathy for the people of Jamaica. And of course, the British Jamaican community wants to help as well. So really grateful for that. But it's always great if people can still donate as the response gets underway, because obviously with more funds, we can help more families.
Yes, look, we do experience our share of storms, but nothing like hurricanes. I mean, not even half the wind speed that they would have experienced in Haiti and Jamaica and in Cuba and other places as well. It also seems to be broadly a truism that it is the poorer countries that get afflicted by some of these very worst disasters as well. Do you get a sense, and I know this is looking into the future and the here and now is vitally important, do you get a sense you're just going to have to be doing more of this kind of thing in the future?
We are already seeing that in the last few years. The hurricanes, when they're coming, are more severe than ever before. And yes, geographically, they hit some of the poorest countries in the world. In Jamaica, we should give credit to the Jamaican government's coordination of emergency evacuations, because I think that contributed to a remarkably low casualty rate for these sort of events in our experience. So these countries are learning by themselves to be more effective at responding to hurricanes and these kind of climate-related events, because they know it's not a question of if, but when the next one is going to come.
Certainly, Sanj, appreciate your time this morning. Good luck to you and your teams from Shelterbox and all your colleagues in trying to deal with the situation in the Caribbean. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
This is Breakfast from Sky News. Coming up after this short break, a Prime Minister and a Chancellor under a bit more pressure. I'll be speaking to a leading economist about the calls for Rachel Reeves to quit and also the possibility of tax rises in the forthcoming budget.
People want intelligent news, but it can be done in a less buttoned-up way.
Have a conversation in the same way that people do at home. Sophie is the best in the business.
If politicians are not answering the question, I'm not going to let them get away with that. This is my interview. Look, this is ridiculous. And there is nobody better to cut through the noise than Will.
You did say there wouldn't be further tax hikes. You can no longer make that promise. Mornings with Ridge and Frost. I literally can't wait to get going.
Play it cool, Will. Play it cool.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force.
It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
What country are you
From the UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
Welcome back. You're watching Breakfast here on Sky News with me, Matt Barbet. Coming up, will Rachel Reeves stick to her party's tax promises? We'll be discussing the Chancellor's options with a leading economist in a moment. But first, let's remind you of our top stories this Thursday morning, beg your pardon. Now, at least 34 people are known to have been killed by Hurricane Melissa. That number, though, is expected to rise as emergency workers start to reach those communities where almost nothing is left standing. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has apologised to the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, for what she has called inadvertent error in not obtaining the proper licence for renting out her family home before she moved into number 11. The Conservatives believe her position is no longer tenable and she should resign. 5 new suspects have been arrested over the theft of priceless jewellery from the Louvre in Paris. Thieves broke into the museum early this month, exposing serious security flaws. Let's turn our attention back to Hurricane Melissa and the devastation it has wrought across the Caribbean. The true picture is starting to emerge this morning. Thomas Moore is here, our science correspondent. And Thomas, we'll get onto the pictures and the before and after in a second. But some people are saying, hang on, there's been fewer hurricanes this storm season. So is climate change to blame for this? Has it played a part in this? What's the situation as you understand it?
Well, you can never get a trend from 1 year. What they are saying, the climate scientists who are looking at our warmer future, they're saying that the frequency of storms won't increase, but the frequency of intense storms will, because those warm waters will spiral those winds ever more strongly. So scientists in Imperial College have actually taken a quick look at Melissa, and they've said that the hurricane was made 4 times more likely as a result of human-induced climate change. It boosted wind speed by 7%, that's 11 miles an hour, and it increased the damage done by the hurricane too. So you can see there that climate change is making hurricanes much worse.
Let's take a look at some of the before and after pictures, though, because talking about the cause, this really brings it home, because these are people's homes, of course, and businesses and livelihoods that have been absolutely destroyed. I think that's a before and after in Black River in Jamaica. Talk us through the rest of them, Thomas.
Yeah, so this is Black River. It's the capital of St Elizabeth Parish in the southwest of the country, and it bore the brunt of these 185-mile-an-hour winds. You can see the commercial district there. Keep an eye on that white building and the building to the right of it. That is the fire station. See what happens afterwards. Even that has been knocked to the ground. On the left there, you had some beachfront houses right on the water's edge. Now, they would have been pummeled by the 4-metre storm surge pushed ahead by these winds. But the winds just tore through the country. You can see there some more houses before the storm. And then afterwards, again, you can see that they have been either completely destroyed or their roofs have been lifted off. And we've heard from the Prime Minister saying that he had seen 80 to 90% of houses with their roofs ripped off. So a phenomenal amount of destruction that the country is going to need to recover from.
Yes, and that's Jamaica, which is clearly a relatively modernised country, better connections and everything else. Cuba is not in the same state, and Haiti certainly isn't in the same state, and they've both been hit hard as well. Haiti not directly, but the storm surges have caused loss of life in that country too.
And flooding too. I mean, you forget that this is a vast storm system. The hurricane force winds are really in a tight corridor of about 40, 50 miles across. But beyond that, you've got then tropical storm force winds and these bands of heavy rain that have dropped as much as 50 centimetres or even more in some areas of water in a few hours. And that has led to catastrophic flooding in low-level areas. Many roads are still impassable, not only because of water, but also because of fallen trees and debris from urban areas. So you can see it's going to be a while for emergency teams to be able to push through to reach these areas. The Prime Minister has talked about the need for restoring power to hospitals, to police stations and so on, because they need to get back on their feet as quickly as possible to deliver the emergency care that these people are going to need in the coming days.
Thomas, really appreciate you joining us this morning again to talk through the situation. Thank you very much indeed. Now, probably fair to say, not a particularly great morning in Downing Street this morning, both at number 10 and number 11, because the Chancellor is facing calls to quit for breaking the rules by renting out her London home when she moved into number 11 without the requisite licence. While she faces questions over her own finances, she's also got a 20 billion black hole, we understand, to fill in the government's finances. Yesterday, Keir Starmer refused to rule out tax rises at PMQs. Could we have that clip? I don't think we do have that clip, but let's... Oh, here it is.
Labour promised not to increase income tax, not to increase national insurance, and not to increase VAT. Does the Prime Minister still stand by his promises?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm glad that the Leader of the Opposition is now finally talking about the economy. I can update the House, Mr. Speaker. Retail sales are higher than expected. Inflation is lower than expected. Growth has been upgraded this year. And, Mr. Speaker, the UK stock market is at an all-time high. The budget is on the 26th of November, and we will lay out our plans. But I can tell the House now that we will build a stronger economy, we will cut NHS waiting lists and deliver a better future for our country.
Joined now by Simon French, Chief Economist at Panmure Liberum. Have I said that right, Simon? My Latin's not particularly great.
Panmure Liberum, Matt.
Thank you very much indeed. We used to work in the government. I think that's just as important to say as well. Look, we'll talk in a minute potentially about Rachel Reeves' own personal situation with the licence putting under more pressure. But let's look at what we think may happen in the budget in a month's time. Interesting that at PMQs yesterday, the Prime Minister didn't continue to back the idea that they will not raise personal national insurance, income tax or VAT. What do you read into that, Simon?
So I think there are two interpretations of what the Prime Minister said yesterday. The first of which is that the Chancellor may adopt a proposal from her favourite think tank, the Resolution Foundation, to raise income tax by 2p in the pound and cut national insurance for employees by 2p in the pound. So the people in work, and remember the phrase working people has been bandied about by the Labour Party since the general election, the income or the after-tax income they would face wouldn't change. They wouldn't see any effect in their pay packet, but it would bring a wider group of a wider scope of income into scope for taxation, so would raise the overall tax burden by about £6 billion. That's one interpretation. The other interpretation is that she just recognises the big downgrade that is coming from the Office of Budget Responsibility to Productivity, which, as you said in your introduction, has a £20 billion price tag attached to it, and just raises income tax by a straight 1 or 2p in the pound. And that would raise either 10 billion or 20 billion pounds per year. And that would, if you like, clear the decks of the fiscal black hole in a slightly cleaner way than playing around with smaller taxes on capital, on wealth, on shares, the type of things that can have quite distortionary impacts.
Look, you've been on the other side of this. You know how it works. The government doesn't want to talk to us about what they're thinking regarding the budget until the budget happens. But they will happily put out feelers there, testing the water on possible ideas. This is the game they play. They put out the feelers. They then don't want to talk about it until the day itself. So I guess what I'm saying, Simon, is there some veracity to these rumours of 2p rises on income tax, cuts to national insurance?
So, as always, it's a bit of a mixed picture. There are definitely leaks that take place. It's always difficult to attribute those to a specific individual. For example, the Chancellor and her very close team deny very strongly that some of these leaks on income tax, on property tax come from them. And for what it's worth, and it's just one person's opinion, I happen to believe them. But the reality is, whenever you're scoping a policy, you bring in a broader group of people, your special advisors, civil servants, and the bigger the pool, the risk of a leak sort of widens with people who are less close to the Chancellor but are quite informed. I think the problem, and I think you're alluding to it absolutely correctly, is the businesses, households up and down the country look at these rumours and perhaps just go, well, maybe I won't make that house purchase, maybe I won't make that car purchase, maybe I won't feel as confident to take out that loan or that credit card. And that has a real impact on on economic growth and economic activity. And that is the problem of this speculation cycle we've got ourselves into.
And also, has the Chancellor to some degree got herself into a spot of bother because of perhaps moving too fast, too quickly, with simultaneously increasing the national minimum wage, or the national living wage as they prefer to call it, and also increasing national insurance contributions by businesses? Because critics say that's a tax on jobs.
It is, and the employee payroll data since the general election last year has been largely negative. I think 9 months out of the 13 months we've had of data have been negative, reductions in payroll employment. The problem, of course, is that perhaps that employer national insurance change incentivized a few more people to be self-employed. So maybe we've had a move off payroll into self-employment, and therefore total employment isn't that much changed. There's quite a lot of noise, unfortunately, in the data for economists like me, and indeed for the Treasury, to try and interpret all this. But I agree with your sentiment that to do the national living wage, the employee rights bill, and employee NICs at the same time feels like indigestion for employers, and some of them are responding by laying off workers.
The sentiment of critics, Simon, by the way, not my personal sentiment. That's what people are saying. A couple more questions on this, because you talked about the favoured think tank, the Resolution Foundation. Now, it just so happens their former boss, Torsten Bell, is now an MP and does have a say in the Treasury. And we've seen ideas from him in the past that people would think could be quite radical, getting rid of a lot of the taxation and making it simpler to understand, giving a bit more away to everybody in terms of tax-free benefits and that kind of thing. Do you get a sense that Torsten Bell is having an impact on the budget that we're going to see in a month's time?
General view is that we tend to overinterpret the impact of individuals in a budgetary process. It is a collective responsibility of the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, collective responsibility of the Cabinet, and Torsten Bell isn't actually in the Cabinet. So I think it would be probably overstated to suggest that he has having a strong leading role in this. But I have seen since the general election, as he has moved through the ministerial ranks, the junior ministerial ranks, a lot of investors who I speak to daily saying, well, what did Torsten write when he was at the Resolution Foundation on tax in the sort of public markets, stock markets? What has he proposed on taxation of shares? And then for interpreted that everything he's written, he's got a big back catalogue, it has to be said, of research that he's put his name to, is suddenly going to become public policy. That hasn't been our experience over the last year or so. And my personal view is that's unlikely to be the case of this budget.
Simon, I know you're not a politician, man. I'm going to put you slightly on the spot now with a bit of a pop quiz. Do you know when the last time was that any government put up the rate of income tax?
Instinct, it would be the early 1970s, so probably 50 years ago.
Let's give him that one, everybody. 1975, Harold Wilson's government raised the basic rate of income tax to 35%. Since then, it hasn't happened, and the basic rate now sits, I think, at 20%. You've got 40 and 45% as well above that. The question this is leading to is, have governments consistently led to us living beyond our means? And we only have to look across the Channel to France to see what kind of problems that kind of approach can cause. Does a government just need to grasp the nettle and say, we're going to put up income tax?
Yes, or cut spending. There are two ways you can do it. If you conclude that the creditors to the UK that lend the UK £2.8 trillion, that's the size of our national debt, want to see a bit of living within your means, you've either got to live within your means by raising tax, or by reducing spending. I think the lack of clarity from, actually, I put the blame actually at the PM's door, not the Chancellor's door, to lay out what proportion is going to be done through tax increases versus spending cuts is the thing that the markets, a lot of people in the wider economy are concerned about. Whatever one thinks of George Osborne on the austerity period from 2010, he did set out a ratio of 80% spending cuts, 20% tax increases. Now, I wouldn't expect a Labour Chancellor to have that same ratio, but I would expect her to set out her ratio. The absence of that is one of the big challenges and one of the big problems that creditors and investors in the UK are citing.
Yes, and trying to make cuts has led to the government clashing with their own backbenchers in Parliament as well. Simon, we could talk about this all morning. Sadly, we are at time, but really appreciate you joining us from Panmure Liberum. I think I got it right that time. Simon French, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now, the US President Donald Trump has met his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in South Korea on the final day of Trump's visit to Asia. It was the first meeting between the pair since Donald Trump imposed global trade tariffs, fueling tensions between China and the US. The President Trump, has said the US can sign a trade deal with China pretty soon now and confirmed that tariffs on China will come down. Our Asia correspondent Helen Ann Smith brings us this update now from Busan in South Korea.
I think there's been a lot of eyes on this meeting in recent weeks, lots of speculation that it might not go ahead at all. And as you say, it matters for the whole world because since Donald Trump took office for the second time, there's just been this escalating tit-for-tat spat. It's affecting deeply the economies of both countries and it's affected trade, economies, supply chains and so on all around the world. There was a sense, I think, right from the off, though, that these two men were coming to this meeting with such different styles. Right from the very first handshake, you got that sense. Donald Trump really dominating the space. He was the one leaning in. He was the one doing pretty much all of the talking. He even sort of quipped and joked with reporters that Xi was a tough negotiator and that wasn't necessarily very good. That didn't raise even so much as an eyebrow from the Chinese president. Totally inscrutable. And I think that just said a lot about the differences in the styles between the two. Xi Jinping hates unscripted moments, never really does them. Trump thrives on them. But look, there were some pretty warm words between the two in front of the cameras before the doors closed and they got down to business. And we've started to get a bit of a sense of the things that they've agreed. And there has been some progress on some pretty significant issues. There's been apparently agreements to start the flow of rare earth metals. That's crucially important. These very important elements that are used to make all range of high-tech equipment. China controls the vast majority of the world's supply. America needs that. Agreements for China to buy more soybeans from the US. That will be good for American farmers. Agreements to talk further about the trade of high-tech chips from America. There's been lots of restrictions on those in terms of China buying them. And crucially, an agreement to bring tariffs down as well. Not by a huge amount, by 10%. We're still talking about quite high rates of tariffs on Chinese goods, but that at least is something. They also said as well that Trump plans to visit China next year in April. And that, I think, is important, just a continuation of these diplomatic channels that really had broken down in recent months. But look, I think if we were to take a few things away, I think they should be this. Firstly, I think there was an agreement, clearly, a recognition on both sides that some sort of stabilisation was necessary. The spiralling chaos between them and the economies just wasn't working for each. But I think both wanted to come away having been seen as to not yield. And I think that has been very important. Donald Trump really met his match in Xi Jinping. At no point has he really capitulated in the face of that maximum pressure playbook. He has instead met him eye to eye on that. And therefore, I think going forward, there's nothing necessary to say that there won't be future stumbling blocks and there won't necessarily be sort of moves back from what they've agreed today. But it is some progress.
Breaking news to bring you now, and it relates to the killing in Moss Side in Greater Manchester of a 15-year-old boy in September, Manhunt Abdullahi Goob. Two further teenagers have now been charged with his murder, according to Greater Manchester Police. They themselves are 15 years old and 14 years old, both boys who, because of their age, can't be named for legal reasons. But they will appear at Manchester City and Salford Youth Court later on today. And this relates to the killing of 15-year-old Manhunt Abdullahi Goob, which happened in Moss Side in Greater Manchester in September. Two more teenagers who are 14 and 15 themselves have both been charged with murder. They'll appear in court later on today in Manchester. You're watching Sky News and Breakfast on Sky News. We'll be back after the break.
I'm Cordelia Lynch, Sky's Asia correspondent, based here in Bangkok.
These slums, once gripped by fear and death.
There is far less bloodshed now, but it hasn't gone away.
Who's asking you to kill?
The police will give me the orders, and after I kill the target, I throw the gun away.
We try our best to uncover and unpick a fast-changing and deeply complex region.
These large waterways provided an excellent source of body disposal.
This is the Buriganga River, where victims who'd allegedly been shot dead were dumped.
Sheikh Hasina, how confident are you that she will stand trial?
She will stand trial, there's no doubt about that.
We're going to take you to the very heart of a criminal network, going undercover inside Southeast Asia's scam centres for the very first time.
We won't have any problems with police, it's okay. Just seen Imran Khan leave, and as we understand it, he's just been shot in the leg.
They have decided that the only way they'll allow elections is if I'm inside jail or killed.
Sky News get the full story first.
Chinese vessels start encircling the boat we're on, blocking its path.
The Chinese are now deploying water cannons, firing it directly towards our boat. We've discovered doctors across Delhi dishing out pills like this, claiming they will provide a lifelong cure for homosexuality.
Rohingya people fleeing an escalating civil war.
The situation here in Cox's is desperate. An already insecure place does feel a lot more precarious.
People that hold together, they have a little hive brain going on.
They've not had a good week.
I've had a good week. There's a teaser there, a teaser.
Okay, nothing to see here. Drama over.
Full stop.
Anyway, we'll get to that. She will be mortified.
Because she's the first female Chancellor.
I popped upstairs, made myself a cheese sandwich, and now I'm with you.
Annalise has come dressed in the magenta of electoral dysfunction. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here to feed. It's basically a buffet on a beach. This could be not only a record-breaking storm, but potentially the most dangerous storm ever to hit Ireland.
Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch is due to give a speech shortly. She's expected to challenge Labour ahead of the budget, which is next month. Joining me now is our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates. Sam, this has been well trailed, so give us a sense of what we're expecting to hear.
Well, the reason that we're here, Matt, is because Kemi Badenoch wants to get ahead of the argument on the budget on November the 26th. They had quite a good day in the Tory party yesterday, I think, in Prime Minister's Questions, where Kemi Badenoch extracted from the Prime Minister a bit of a sense of where the budget is going. Now, back in June, the PM was able to say, we're not going to make our manifesto commitments in order to fill the 20, 30 billion pound black hole that Rachel Reeves is facing on November the 26th. But yesterday, at Prime Minister's Questions, well, Keir Starmer clearly unable to give that same commitment again. So the front pages of the papers are all asking the question, could Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves raise council tax by 1 pence or 2 pence? To what extent could the Chancellor end up breaking manifesto commitments? So things were going all their way already in the current news cycle. But then, late last night, the news dropped about Rachel Reeves and her housing. The story, as your viewers will know, is that the Chancellor rented out her Dulwich property in South London. Now, that property is in an area that requires you to seek a permit before getting in tenants, and she did not. So that is a breach of property law. That is problematic for a Chancellor It's only a few weeks after another very senior member of the government had to resign because of falling foul of property laws. And here we have the Chancellor, arguably the second most important person in the government, particularly at this point, 26 days or so, 27 days away from the budget, now facing a not dissimilar allegation. Now, last night, Keir Starmer threw his protective cloak around Rachel Reeves. He effectively said, look, I've checked with my independent investigator for ministerial interests, and you don't have to resign. An apology is sufficient. You dealt with this, you acted quickly, so you can stay. But of course, the Tories this morning want to make clear that is not enough. Priti Patel, the Shadow Home Secretary, you can hear the event getting underway behind me by the side of the tent. Priti Patel calling on her to resign, calling on Southwark Council to prosecute Rachel Reeves. I'd expect very similar language when Kemi Badenoch gets up on the stage behind me in order to address the party faithful. Mel Stride, the Shadow Chancellor, will also speak, and you've got a band of supporters here as well. So a fresh attack line for the Conservatives aimed directly at Rachel Reeves over her property, as well as asking questions about the budget and what taxes will she have to raise in a month, because tax rises are a certainty, as Rachel Reeves told me, meaning that this is pretty comfortable territory by the side of the Thames for the Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, when she appears in a few minutes.
They're lucky with the weather as well, Sam, let's be honest. Thank you very much indeed for the time being. Mari's here. Just very briefly, Mari, the Tories focused on this property thing, and Mel Stride himself was sat there saying that he thinks the Chancellor's position is untenable.
Yeah, absolutely. The Tories want Rachel Reeves gone. They point to examples of Labour in opposition saying, you know, you can't be a lawmaker if you are a lawbreaker.
Mari, thanks for the time being. We'll bring you whatever Kemi Badenoch has to say by the banks of the River Thames after this short break.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock. You're watching Sky News. At least 34 people have died after one of the strongest hurricanes ever to hit the Caribbean.
Plus, we'll hear from Conservative leader Kemi Badenoch any minute now. We'll bring you that speech live.
It is Thursday, October the 30th. Hurricane Melissa carves a trail of devastation throughout the Caribbean. Also this morning, Keir Starmer accepts an apology from his Chancellor, who says she didn't know that she needed a licence to rent out her London home.
Given where we are at the moment and that there's going to be no proper investigation, I think he needs to do the right thing and accept that her position is not tenable.
Good morning, welcome to breakfast here on Sky News. We'll turn our attention to the devastation wrought by the hurricane in the Caribbean in a moment. But first, breaking news, the leader of the Conservatives, Kemi Badenoch, is due to give a speech shortly in London. So let's head straight to the banks of the River Thames. Our deputy political editor, Sam Coates, is there now. Morning to you, Sam. And she's expected to, well, in some ways, she's been given a gift, hasn't she? She's got some ammunition to aim at the Chancellor in particular.
That's right. I think that they feel like a little bit of vindication, a little bit of happiness this morning in Conservative headquarters that they've got an event on the morning of a big breaking news story last night. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, had to apologise because she failed to adhere to laws requiring her to get a permit before she rented out her family home in Dulwich in South London so she could move her family to Downing Street. Dulwich property, which has tenants, is in a special zone which requires you to get a permit. That's the local council regulations. She did not do that. The Daily Mail newspaper uncovered the fact that she had not got such a permit. That puts her in breach of the law, and therefore she has had to apologise. She says that she is trying to rectify the situation swiftly. And she has consulted the Prime Minister. In an emergency meeting with Keir Starmer last night, Keir Starmer agreed that she could stay because, in his view, an apology was enough. And he says that the independent investigator into ministerial interests, Laurie Magnus, agrees with him. And because of her swift rectification of the matter, he believes that she could stay. Of course, this only came to light because of the Daily Mail, so it wasn't of her own volition and her own checking that this came to light. But the Conservatives today say it is not enough. We have some members of the shadow cabinet, like Priti Patel, going on the record to say she should go. She was first. Mel Stride was second. I think speaking to you, Matt, Mel Stride made clear, he's the Shadow Chancellor, that he thinks in the absence of any investigation, Keir Starmer should simply sack Rachel Reeves. We're 27 days away from one of the biggest budgets that we're going to see in this Parliament. There is, and this is the reason for the Tory event this morning, likely to be tax rises in the order of 15, 20, 25, 30 billion pounds. Tax rises that a year ago Rachel Reeves was saying would not be needed in anything like this magnitude. But because of a combination of factors, U-turns, a failure to get through welfare changes by this government, worsening global economic conditions, as a result of all of that, Rachel Reeves is now going to have to put up tax, possibly on quite a substantial scale, in under a month. That's the reason that Kemi Badenoch is here by the side of the Thames near the South Bank in order to highlight the tax rises in a month to come. She will say those tax rises are unnecessary. She will say that it is simply possible to cut the amount of money being spent on the state, on government, and that you can find the necessary cash that way rather than putting up people's taxes. This is, in some ways, is trying to pitroll the Conservative response for the budget in almost exactly a month's time. But the breaking news story about Rachel Reeves overtaking that. And as a consequence, there's sort of double-headed event this morning with Kemi Badenoch appearing in front of activists alongside her Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride, who was just alongside you a couple of hours ago, Matt, in order to sort of hammer home those messages. Now, I think one of the interesting critiques of Kemi Badenoch is she doesn't do enough of this stuff. So I think that there is a certain amount of serendipity, certain amount of happiness inside Conservative HQ that one of these events has landed on a day where there's something substantial. Now, you can hear at the event sort of gearing into view. Behind me is the shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride. On the other side is a barking dog. So I think we are now going to listen to Mel Stride.
Well, thank you. I think I might stop now, actually. It's going so well. So, good morning, everybody. Are we up for the fight? Do we want to see the back of this lousy Labour government? Do we want to see the back of this lousy Labour Chancellor? Do we want me to be Chancellor? Oh, well, thank you for the last one. I'm pleased about that. Look, we know that this country is crying out for change. It's had enough of a Labour Party and a Chancellor that have done little but break their word time after time after time. This was a party that went into the last general election and promised not to put up taxes left, right and centre, and yet within a short period of a few months, they had done precisely that, with the consequence that they destroyed growth and businesses in our country. They said to the farmers, they looked the president of the NFU in the eye and said, you can trust us when it comes to farming and the farm tax, and they broke their word within a matter of months. They said to our pensioners that they could sleep safely in their beds at night. They needn't worry about means testing and the winter fuel payment. And what did they do? They broke their word within months. That is an utterly disgraceful way to behave. And what has the consequence of all of this mismanagement and broken promises been? Well, we've seen growth destroyed in our country. We've seen a party that has talked down our economy. We have seen a party that, despite what they said before the election, went out and borrowed billions and billions of pounds and spent billions and billions of pounds and have raised inflation higher than it otherwise would have been, has kept interest rates higher than it would otherwise have been, and mounted up a colossal national debt, the servicing costs on which alone are running at £100 billion a year. That's twice what we spend on defence. That is unsustainable, and that is what you get with Labour. So we say the consequences of Labour are too clear. We've got record unemployment compared to 4 years ago, the highest in 4 years. Like all Labour governments, they leave office with unemployment higher than when they came into office. We've seen retail, hospitality and leisure shedding 90,000 jobs, many of them young people struggling to get that first rung on the career ladder. But there is another way, ladies and gentlemen, the Conservative way that we set out at our conference. We will get on top of government spending. It has to be done. We will get on top of the welfare bill, getting people off benefits and into work. It has to be done. And if we do it, we can go out there and create this aspiration-driven economy with lower taxes, and we've shown at conference we can abolish stamp duty altogether. We can abolish business rates for high street shops and pubs altogether. We can have a huge, big offer to young people so that the tax they pay on that first job goes towards that precious first property purchase. That is what we will deliver. So I think something's happened behind me. I think somebody important has arrived, and I'm being told that I've got to stop. But let me just say one final thing. Stick with us. There is a better way. It is a Conservative way. And if this Chancellor breaks yet more promises in her budget at the end of next month, she should resign and go. And now, the real person that you've come here for, the leader of our great party, the person that's going to take us into the next election, the person that's going to be the Prime Minister of our country after that election. Ladies and gentlemen, Kemi Badenoch.
Thank you, Mel. Our next Chancellor, everybody, Mel Stride. He has just given a great speech. We all know what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about Rachel Reeves. Yeah. Hands up if you believed Rachel Reeves when she said she wasn't going to put a tax on working people. No. Yeah, I didn't think so. Apparently 1 in 10 people think Rachel Reeves is doing a good job. Who are these people? I haven't met them. She promised not to put a tax on working people. Apparently farmers aren't working people. Apparently anyone who has a job isn't a working person because they put up the jobs tax, and look at what's happened. Unemployment has risen every single month since Labour came into office. It is what Labour does. Ducks quack, cows moo, Labour puts up taxes. We need to get spending under control. That is the only way we're going to get the economy back on track. Control spending. We've offered to help Labour, but they haven't taken our offer of help. Instead, they're making more and more of a mess. Just this morning, we've seen the news. Rachel Reeves apparently has broken a law, just like Angela Rayner before her and Louise Haigh before her. All we see is the Labour cabinet making mistakes, breaking laws. If the Chancellor can't even get it on top of her own paperwork, how's she going to get on top of the country's paperwork? So that is why our message is simple. If she puts up tax, give Reeves the axe. That last budget was a disaster. And after that, she said she wasn't coming back for more. And what have we been hearing all summer? Rises in property taxes, increases in income taxes. They want to tax our homes. They want to tax our pensions. They want to tax our savings. Tax, 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 tax. Enough is enough. If she puts up tax, give Reeves the axe. If you want more of something, you don't tax it. It is a very simple principle. She put taxes on jobs, jobs disappeared. They tax farmers, farmers are closing down. They tax businesses. They're taxing everything. They're taxing education. We're seeing schools close down because they can't afford Labour's taxes. Someone needs to get a grip on it. So Keir Starmer, you need to make sure that your Chancellor gets a grip. If she cannot get a grip on controlling spending, then you need to sack her. Enough is enough. But there is an alternative. There is an alternative, ladies and gentlemen, and that alternative is us. We have a plan. Mel and I have identified £47 billion of savings. We've identified enough savings that will allow us to make sure that we can scrap stamp duty, one of the worst taxes we have ever seen. It is a tax on aspiration. It is a tax on having a family. It's a tax on growing a family. It's a tax on downsizing. We need to get our housing market moving again. That's why stamp duty is our flagship policy. And Rachel, we're very happy for you to steal this policy. We're very happy for you to scrap business rates, just like Mel described, put it in the budget. Let's have a budget of good news this November, not another budget of bad news. And we are able to do this because of our golden economic rule. We need to make sure that we leave an inheritance for our children, for our grandchildren. That means that everything we spend, half of it has to go down to paying down the deficit, as well as investment. That is what we're going to do. Make sure that at every single step, we are fiscally responsible. We're not just going to be slashing the public services that people need. No. We have said we need to start with getting people back into work. Let's cut welfare spending. Let's get many of those people who after COVID just decided to give up. Let's get them back into work. That will grow our economy. What we need right now is growth. Labour has seen a flatlining in growth. It was 0% last month, 0.1% the month before, minus 0.1% the month before. That's terrible. Growth is what is going to solve our problems. We are backing growth. We are backing tax cuts that will create growth. You scrap stamp duty, people build more, people sell more, estate agents make money, builders make money, painters, decorators, John Lewis, next IKEA. Let's get our economy moving again. That is the alternative with Conservatives. Our golden economic rule, finding savings, scrapping stamp duty, scrapping business rates for high streets, and then making sure we get control of spending. So that's my message to Rachel today. I know you've got a lot of problems now with the new issues with being a landlord and messing up your lettings, but no one is interested in your problems. We need you to solve our problems. If she puts up the tax, give Reeves the axe. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
There you go, the Conservatives' dynamic duo Mel and Kem doing their thing on the banks of the Thames. Give Reeves the axe if she puts up tax, they're saying, offering to help and give them ideas. Mari, I can't remember the last time a government took advice from the opposition. Probably never. What did you make of that?
Well, I mean, there was nothing new in there. It was a performance, essentially, rallying of the troops. And what was interesting was they again and again and again were talking about wanting to sack Rachel Reeves. Now, what's really interesting is the plan to call for Rachel Reeves to resign if tax were put up was clearly planned before this kind of fiasco with this renting of the house in Dulwich, breaking those rules came about. So now they have two reasons to call for Rachel Reeves to resign instead of one. And Kemi was basically saying, no one is interested in your problems, we need you to fix our problems. And she's directly addressing Rachel Reeves in that. She directly called on the Prime Minister to sack Rachel Reeves if she puts up tax and breaks manifesto pledges of not putting up income tax, VAT, or a national insurance. But, I mean, the difficulty is, as you were saying, how likely is it that Labour is going to take any advice from them? Well, no, they're going to say it's a bit rich. Hold on a second. It was you that, crashed the economy under the mini-budget. That's the line that they always use. And essentially say they don't really have a leg to stand on when it comes to fiscal credibility. But this is really a performance in trying to find a way to recover some of that credibility, really, as the Tory party, which historically was often trusted on the economy. But clearly they damaged heavily that reputation, and this is part of that repair job.
Yeah, a couple of things worth pointing out is that we know the tax burden rose to its highest ever level, more certainly since the war under the Conservatives, remains high, of course, and it's also very easy to make cuts when you're in opposition because you don't have to do it. Nevertheless, you can tell by the strength of feeling. I mean, I'm not sure the renter crowd was quite as vocal as they would have liked. I mean, the weather's decent, so they should have been happy to be out in the sunshine. However, they can make points about the cuts they would like to see, how they would pay for them. We see other parties trying to do that reform for this week with cutting the civil service, but only saving £100 million, which is a very small drop in the ocean. At least the Tories, I guess, from their conference a few weeks ago have spelled out how they would pay for the cuts they want to make.
Yeah, they have. And, I mean, there's always a bit of a fudge with these numbers, but from all parties, that is not a Tory thing. Labour was slightly the same in the general election, for instance. But they have said how they would pay for it. They said how they would calculate that all out. And really, it's about giving a bit of red meat to Tory members. Yeah. So the abolition of stamp duty, that vision of that, and cutting business rates for high street shops, for instance, that is the kind of stuff that really puts a smile on a kind of old-school Tory face. And therefore, they want to make sure that they are keeping those members happy, and it's something that, is considered to be a very kind of traditional Tory value, always making sure that you cut tax and cut red tape. That's kind of the basis, really.
Mari, thank you very much indeed. We'll have much more on this and the rest of the day's stories after this break. Don't go away.
People want intelligent leaders, but it can be done in a less buttoned-up way.
Have a conversation in the same way that people do at home. Sophie is the best in the business.
If politicians are not answering the question, I'm not going to let them get away with that. This is my interview. Look, this is ridiculous. And there is nobody better to cut through the noise than Wilf.
You did say there wouldn't be further tax hikes. You can no longer make that promise. Mornings with Ridge and Frost. I literally can't wait to get going.
Play it cool, Wilf. Play it cool.
What might happen if Russia attacked the UK?
This is clearly an enormous show of force. It is definitely out of the ordinary.
We ran a war game with former ministers back in the hot seat.
Ben Wallace.
Amber Rudd.
Jack Straw.
It's the kind of war game that's genuinely tested inside government.
The Russians are signalling that there may be an attack.
Russia knows our weaknesses, but do you? I'm Deborah Haynes. From Sky News and Tortoise, this is The War Game. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
I saw police being forceful, pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support.
What country are you
from? The UK.
Okay, we don't give a crap about your opinion and your reporting. Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles.
Well, we've just seen the Conservative leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, on the banks of the Thames alongside her Shadow Chancellor, Mel Stride, bigging up their plans should they come back into power at some point for the economy, and also trying to trash what they think Rachel Reeves is going to do in the budget in a month, also focusing on that story that emerged overnight about Rachel Reeves not having the required licence to let out her home in the borough of Southwark. Joining me now is former leader of the Conservative Party, Tory MP, Sir Ian Duncan-Smith. Good morning to you. We'll get on to other matters abroad in a second, not least Xi Jinping and Donald Trump meeting in South Korea and the importance of that. I don't know if you saw much of what Kemi Badenoch and Mel Stride had to say just then, but what do you think about how they are using this opportunity, I suppose?
Well, I didn't see it, I'm afraid. I'm in the constituency. I was putting poppies up all morning, so I've only just got back in here to do these interviews. But I do have an understanding of what she said, and I think it's the right position. The economy right now needs taxes like, a sick man needs drugs taken off them. I mean, the reality is that we have an economy which is in serious danger. The debts are rising and the costs are rising. The cost of energy now is on a staggering high, higher than anywhere else in the developed world and probably anywhere else in the world. And so businesses are shutting. You've got real problems on the high street. And all of these things are down to, I think, what is essentially economic mismanagement. They do not need taxes raised on them. They've already had national insurance come up, and that's hammered lots of small businesses. Lots of people start up, for the part-time work. They're not getting that work because lowering the threshold to £5,000 at the starter point of paying national insurance has been a body blow to them. So what she's trying to say is we need now to take the shackles off the economy and start to get it moving. The difficult days of COVID, which led to tax rises and everything else, we're through that. What we have to have is now give a kickstart to private enterprise, really critically.
You talk there about energy being really expensive, and it certainly is, but a lot of people think that clean energy is going to be the cheapest. I mean, you see when the wind is blowing, energy companies even giving it away for free for a couple of hours, yet in their costings, the Conservative leadership want to axe funding of anything that's net zero, and that has raised the ire of former Conservative Prime Ministers in Boris Johnson, John Major and Theresa May. Are they right to do that?
No, they're completely wrong to comment on it. The truth is that we have a major problem on our hands. We have a complete ideology going right through about having to go to net zero. We are less than 1% of total global emissions. And the reality is right now is this huge drive to carpet the United Kingdom with solar arrays, which are very inefficient in this part of the globe, and also with wind farms. We have to have now, as a result of this drive, we have to have gas power stations on full standby all the time. Why? Because when the wind doesn't blow, you have to have immediate electrical power, and you have to therefore have a reliable source of that. That is gas at the moment. And the winds, when it blows and they can't use the energy because the demand isn't so great, it either just gets let away or you can give it to people, but even they may not need it. So the reality is this is completely bonkers. And the reason we have the highest energy charges now in the world are because we have leveled huge charges charges on companies and individuals in this drive to get to net zero. What Kemi is talking about is saying we don't want to have to make life really difficult. It's difficult for consumers and it's really difficult for industry now, because you wouldn't set up a manufacturing business here in the UK with our energy costs. And so the responsibility for getting them down has nothing to do with the strike price of gas. If gas went down to zero on the strike price, we'd still have the highest energy prices in the Western world, in the developed world. And so the reality is it's bad policy to rush, drive and beat people to this net zero idea. Yes, get to net zero, but get at a pace that you can actually manage, not at this ridiculous high cost manner.
OK, I hear your opinion on that. Obviously at odds with the other former Conservative leaders, but you're certainly entitled to that. Let's focus on the situation we've seen in the past few hours in South Korea. Xi Jinping, Donald Trump finally meeting for the first time in years. Is this good news? Is this a good thing that they can somehow strike a deal? Because clearly those two giant economies affect all of us.
It's always good to make sure that George Orwell rather than war is the purpose of life, and therefore people meeting with each other with different ideologies, and you couldn't get much different between President Xi and President Trump, is a good thing. And trying to level out this ridiculous position that China has taken over freezing off, not allowing anybody, America particularly, to take their rare earth minerals is very damaging to the Western world as well as to the rest of the world, as it were. So it's good to see them meeting. It's good to see them try and strike some balance. However, I have to say this should come with a very heavy warning stamped across it. President Xi himself runs a brutal regime that is imposing huge problems across them. The genocide, slave labor they use in products. They undercut the WTO. They don't play by the rules at any stage. They threaten Taiwan with invasion. You know, they threaten their neighbors. They've taken over the South China Seas against the UN, said they had no right to that, and they clash with their neighbors in the Philippines, etc., the whole time. So all of this is the nation that Trump is trying to arrange a kind of deal with, and they're very difficult to make a deal with because they break pretty much every arrangement they've ever made. So I would say caution on this, and caution with the way that they actually at the moment support Russia in their invasion. If China hadn't been supporting Russia, Russia would have had to stop this brutal war at least a year and a half to 2 years ago. They would have run out of munitions and money. But China keeps them up to the mark. And it was the Chinese foreign minister the other day that said China cannot allow Russia to lose the war. And that's because their threats to Taiwan will depend at the end of the day on Russia succeeding in Ukraine. And that is what the problem that faces Trump. But it also faces us in the UK. You've seen this terrible collapse spy trial because the British government is on this ridiculous kowtow to China for a trade arrangement, ignoring everything else and the threats that they pose to us on a daily basis, cyber attacks, you know, all these things are going on all the time. Yeah. And so I say simply watch with caution when you deal with the Chinese.
Well, look, we can get into the whole Chinese spy trial, but we'll be here all day, and certainly others are pointing the finger at the Director of Public Prosecutions for not proceeding. However, we'll put that to one side. You mentioned the rare earth situation with China. They didn't do that entirely unprompted, did they? Let's be honest here. It was Donald Trump coming out with tariffs first and foremost that led to this massive disagreement between the two countries. Looking back at that now, then, do you think the end, this discussion, this talk of a deal now, justifies Donald Trump's means?
Well, it depends how long this lasts. I mean, I'm a little bit skeptical, I'm afraid, about sometimes Donald Trump's statements, you know, we've got a deal, and you look at President Xi and he doesn't respond to that, and that's because he knows very well he's managed to get the Americans to step back on part of their trade sanctions. He needs trade with America. President Xi desperately needs trade with America because their economy is not doing that well at the moment. And so he's prepared to make some arrangement. Bear in mind, he put the embargo on rare earths. But the one thing I have to say, people like me, and I've been banging on about this for some time, have tried to warn the West that what they're doing is sleepwalking into a sort of subjugation through trade by China, because rare earth minerals, China has carefully managed to garner pretty well 90% of the production of rare earth minerals from around the world, huge amounts obviously in China. These are the things that make the little magnets that power everything on our telephones, our computers, on this means, on your ability to transmit. All of that relies on rare earth minerals. And we have stupidly failed to recognize that we need to have our own strategic supply of these.
Yeah.
So now what we've done, because it was cheaper, because China didn't care a damn about net zero, and they really didn't, so they were able to use the dirtiest coal to make these things. We all went, oh, that's all right. We don't have to have the carbon targets as a result. Well, that's been very short-minded, very short-termism from the West. We need now to recognize strategic resources, and America should have known that some time ago, and therefore this is a failure on their part, and they now need to rectify it.
Well, America is playing catch-up, isn't it? It's wooing rare earth processing facilities from the UK to the US. They're playing catch-up there. And I should say China as well, regardless of what you said there, sure, burns a lot of coal, but is also focusing on investing an awful lot in sustainability. I think is the world's leading manufacturer of solar panels. We are to
They
time.
do, by the way, which they produce hugely using coal and oil and gas, and they actually open up a coal-fired power station every few weeks in China. So let's not blind ourselves to the fact that they don't really care that much. They want to get the goods out and sell them. That's their priority over anything to do with net zero.
We are to time. This has been a wide-ranging conversation, and appreciate you jumping around the issues all the same. Ian Duncan-Smith, IDS, thank you very much indeed. This is Breakfast on Sky News. Coming up after the next short break, the destruction of Hurricane Melissa is starting to be fully revealed. We'll have more with our science correspondent Thomas Moore in a moment. Welcome back to Breakfast. Our top story this morning, at least 34 people are now known to have been killed by one of the strongest Atlantic hurricanes ever recorded, but that number is expected to rise as emergency workers start to reach those communities where almost nothing has been left standing. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner reports now on the impact of Hurricane Melissa.
Hurricane Melissa tore through the heart of this island. The region known as Jamaica's breadbasket for its crop growing is hardest hit. A seemingly endless trail of destruction.
October 2025, the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. It has been devastating.
It's a date and a day nobody here will forget. The aftermath of the strongest storm to hit Jamaica since records began. People here were still rebuilding from Hurricane Beryl, which caused widespread damage last year, but this is much worse. The hurricane also pummeled parts of Cuba. Haiti escaped a direct hit, but wasn't spared. Scores of people losing their lives from flooding.
I had 4 children at home, a 1-month-old baby, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, and another who was about to turn 4. All 4 are gone.
Jamaica's Prime Minister surveyed the disaster zone. Authorities say the country's healthcare system is in crisis too. Not hard to see why, when this is the main hospital in the area. The roof was ripped off here, and at another hospital nearby too. Yet nurses continued to treat patients even as the storm raged.
Even after the storm, we have emergencies, using lanterns and flashlights, but God has been good to us.
The town of Black River was shredded by wind. Here it is before Melissa and after. A closer look at the main street shows previously colourful homes, restaurants and bars now rubble.
The roof just taken clean off there.
It's gone. Yeah, it peeled off.
Nikki's house was directly in the hurricane's path. She hunkered in the garage as it hit.
When it really started kicking, it was truly scary. The building was shaking. The windows were bowing in despite the shutters, the hurricane shutters. Water was coming in under the door. And it was just this most unearthly noise. It's not a howling. It's almost like an express train.
How difficult is the recovery going to be for some of these places?
Unimaginable. Jamaica has never had a storm of this intensity, this strength. And a lot of people didn't take it as seriously as they should have. It's just about as bad as it could have got.
With roads blocked, emergency services struggled to reach the worst affected areas, even with the help of Good Samaritans.
A little bit of a waterfall in here right now.
Around 25,000 tourists are still stuck on the island. Most rode out the storm in hotels, some of which were also badly damaged. But a message of resilience is echoing across Jamaica.
Oh, the fact of the matter is that this won't be the first and the last hurricane that we've experienced. We had a major Cat 4 37 years ago and one 37 years before that. So we've been experiencing this for decades, and we become more experienced and more resilient. And it's time now for the government and the world to come to the assistance, and let's get Jamaica back on track in the shortest possible time.
The US is sending urban rescue and disaster relief teams to the Caribbean. Finding any survivors and preventing the spread of disease will be their first job. Martha Kellner, Sky News.
Thomas is with me once again to talk about this, our science correspondent Thomas Moore. It's frustrating, isn't it? But it's just a fact of life with things like this that we're not going to know the true picture. And it may be terrible. It's certainly been bad enough already. But it's going to take quite a while for them to understand what's really happened in these countries.
Yes, because the western area of Jamaica is cut off by flooding, by trees, by debris. The best picture is coming from space at the moment. And we've got some of the first photos taken by orbiting satellites, which will be useful for the government and indeed for aid agencies as they try and direct teams towards areas of greatest need. This is Black River. on the southwest coast of Jamaica before the hurricane hit, and it was a direct hit on this town, the capital of St Elizabeth Parish. Take a look at it afterwards, and you can see that the houses have either had their roofs ripped off or actually been reduced to rubble. The beachfront properties there would have been hit by the storm surge too. We've got a closer view before the hit of the hurricane. That big white building there in the middle, that is the covered market, hugely important for the commerce in the area. Take a look at it now. Totally gone. I mean, it is quite extraordinary. The power of those winds as it ripped through really left nothing in its wake. It's going to take an awful long time to rebuild that town. And it's not just the buildings. I mean, look at the roads. You know, they've been destroyed, and a lot of the roads you hear are flooded. Here's another image. Thomas, talk us through this one. Yeah, again, this is before the hurricane hit, and take another look afterwards. This is Black River again. And there we go. I mean, these houses are... Yeah, absolutely. And when you actually see some of the video, I've seen some video taken by the police on the ground, and it's houses which are just nothing anymore, unrecognisable from what they would have been. Power lines down, water across the streets, cars just knocked sideways. It is going to be a phenomenal effort to clean up and then rebuild. Yes, look, Jamaica's, compared to other countries, relatively wealthy. Cuba isn't, Haiti certainly isn't. I've been to Haiti when they were struggling to come to the terms of the earthquake in 2010, and the quality of buildings there, some of them withstood an earthquake, but you add in a hurricane, and there hasn't been an awful lot of investment there since, and you can see why. Even though it wasn't in the direct path of Melissa, it still suffered as a result. Yes, I mean, these are brick buildings. They should have withstood a wind, but nothing of this category, a Category 5 storm ripping through. People would have stood no chance. Fortunately, it seemed many people would have gone to the 800 or so refuge areas set aside by the government. So the loss of life, given the scale of the damage, so far, thankfully, seems to be quite low. Yeah, let's hope it stays that way. Where is Melissa now, by the way? So Melissa is still on its track towards Bermuda now. It's passed through Bahamas. It's currently a Category 2 storm, 100-mile-an-hour winds, but there are signs that it is strengthening as it passes over warm water, and it will be for the next few hours. It's expected to start to weaken as it approaches Bermuda overnight, and hopefully that will be the last we see of it, certainly in its current form. Thomas, appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. To Paris now, where the public prosecutor has confirmed 5 more arrests have been made in connection to a brazen break-in here at the Louvre, the world's most famous museum, earlier this month. Live pictures right now of Paris. There is the famous pyramid out front, and a sunny day in Paris, but it's been pretty gloomy for a few weeks since that incredible break-in. Amelia is here now to talk to us more about this. We'd already had a couple of arrests, Amelia, far after this heist, but now there's been some more.
Yeah, well, 5 new suspects have been arrested in connection with this absolutely audacious heist at the world's most famous museum. According to the French prosecutor, they're arrested at around 9 o'clock local time. The arrest took place in and around Paris, but the majority of the arrests were in the Seine-Saint-Denis area, which is an area to the northeast of Paris. And one of these 5 that's been arrested is believed to have been part of the 4-man gang who actually carried out the heist. The pictures we're looking at is them making their escape. And as you correctly said, this comes on top of the 2 arrests that were made last week. One of those men was arrested at Charles de Gaulle Airport trying to leave the country. At a news conference yesterday, the Paris prosecutor said that the 2 suspects, the previous 2 that were arrested, had what she said partially confessed to the involvement in the robbery. So the total of arrests is now 7. This is being called the theft of the decade. It took them less than 8 minutes to steal hugely priceless, valuable objects, Matt. It happened on the 19th of October, a daylight robbery. They broke in using that mechanical lift that we were seeing in those pictures. They broke into a gallery through a window containing the French crown jewels. 9 objects were stolen, including the ones we're looking at on screen, but 8 were actually taken because they dropped one of them when they left. This is a hugely pressing time for French police, because the concern is that those beautiful objects that we're looking at the screen will be broken down and the precious metals melted to sell on, but they haven't found them yet, Matt.
I think hugely priceless is fine, because these are historic as well as being incredibly valuable as well. And I think a lot of people in France are so upset by their loss, because there was talk about them effectively being melted down and the constituent parts being used for other things as well. So, yeah, hugely priceless, I think, hits it on the head. Thank you, Amelia. Still to come here on Breakfast. Sky News speaks to the Irish boy... Can we call them a boy band anymore? Middle-aged band, perhaps. Man band. Westlife. About their plan. They won't mind me saying that, by the way, will they? Because they've got plans to celebrate their 25th anniversary.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Traveling is not just about the destination. It's also about how you get there. Fly Emirates, fly better. Fly Emirates, fly better. Thank you.
Welcome back. Now, more than half of the sickest and most disabled children in England who are referred for NHS-funded support have been rejected for it. The support is known as continuing care, and it's meant to provide tailored care packages for those kids who need support to breathe and to eat, to move, to manage their pain. Sky's People and Politics correspondent Nick Martin has been taking a close look at the situation.
And this is where we sleep, isn't it?
Shelley McLean's 11-year-old daughter Missy needs round-the-clock care. She was born with a rare genetic condition that affects her breathing, digestion and movement.
She came home with a tracheostomy, gastrostomy, jejunostomy, which is a breathing tube in her throat, a feeding tube in her stomach and a feeding tube in her bowel. I'm just changing her gastrostomy button and do it as quick as we can.
For a while, Shelley had some NHS-funded nighttime care, but that support was taken away when her local NHS body decided Missy no longer needed it.
I'm not the type of person who wants to ask anyone for help, but it brought me to my knees. I am very grateful that the NHS saved Missy. She wouldn't be here without them. But they are saving the kids, but they're crippling the parents. Oh, you're going to take pictures?
The care children like Missy need after leaving hospital is called continuing care. It's NHS-funded support for children with the most complex, often life-limiting health needs. For England's sickest children, continuing care depends on where you live. NHS spending on children's continuing care ranges from more than £60 to just 80 pence per child. And out of nearly 100,000 children living with a life-limiting or life-threatening condition, just 4%, around 4,400, actually receive this kind of funding. More than half of all disabled children referred for NHS continuing care were rejected.
Our research shows there's a huge postcode lottery and they're not following that commitment with money and support for continuing care. And many of these families are basically running kind of little hospitals at home to keep their children well and alive. And they're being let down by continuing care.
NHS Cheshire and Merseyside said all patients are reviewed jointly by health and care professionals to ensure they are receiving the most appropriate care for their needs.
What do you say to some people who say, well, she's getting some help, and in a way, the job of a parent isn't an easy one, and you have to fill the gap. Yeah. What do you say to that?
Come and have a week in my position and try getting, woke up every hour on the hour. If I don't go to her, she could have a fit and she could be dead.
Campaigners are calling on the government to make children's continuing care a legal duty, ensuring fair assessments, proper funding and greater transparency across the country. The government says local NHS care boards are responsible for these decisions.
Okay. All right, okay. It's okay. It's okay.
For now, Shelley finds herself in the gap between the NHS and social care. Full-time mum, full-time nurse, and exhausted. Nick Martin, Sky News.
Yeah, remarkable story there about the difficulties for Missy and her mum, Shelley. We're going to change tack now, a key change, if you like, because the Irish boy band Westlife has kicked off its 25-year anniversary celebrations with shows at the Royal Albert Hall, coinciding with the release of their new album. The Irish pop group, boy band, dad band maybe, is going to tour the UK and Ireland next year. Sky's entertainment reporter Debbie Richards spoke to the group, who say their songs still bring up a sense of nostalgia.
Well, the first time we came to London as a band, we were demoing songs with Steve Mack, and would you believe 27 years later, our brand new single, which only came out last Friday, is written by Steve Mack, Ed Sheeran and Johnny McDaid from Snow Patrol. And so the first time I always remember we were staying in a kind of sharing rooms, which was always very interesting when you share rooms. And we were kind of all, how would you say, kind of peacocking a little bit, trying to find your place in the band. We had a few little wrestling matches, friendly wrestling matches, that maybe broke a few wardrobe doors in hotel rooms and stuff. But it was all fun. We were 17, 18, 19 years of age. And within a year, swear it again, I'd gone to #1 in the UK and Ireland and different parts of the world. And then we just didn't look back, to be honest with you. It went from that to If I Let You Go, Fly Me the Wings, Christmas #1, on and on and on. And that's why when we do these shows now and the tour next year, it's a real bang of nostalgia. You know, you see the generations coming to the shows, people letting their hair down, people remembering the songs from their first kiss, their first dance, all those special things that music does. And yeah, we're having, not even just for the fans, we're having the time of our lives. We're singing these songs up there going, I remember breaking the wardrobe door when we were promoting Swear It Again, and now we're singing it in front of the Royal Albert Hall. And look, I mean, just look at this place. The room does the work for you. You know, it's a special week for Westlife. There's no doubt.
That was Nicky Byrne from Westlife talking to Debbie Ridyard, not letting the others get a word in. I'm sure it's different when they perform. They all get a go on the microphone, don't they? And stand up for the key change and all that kind of stuff. You a fan of Westlife?
Yeah, don't they have a Christmas song?
Do they have a Christmas? I think they all have Christmas songs, don't they?
If they do, I love it.
I hear on good authority that a certain Wilfred Frost is a fan of boy bands more generally. Who'd have guessed? Who'd have guessed that he likes the Backstreet Boys? But I mentioned Wilf because as much as Mornings with Matt and Mari has a great ring to it, really alliterative, that's not going to be what breakfast is this time next week. This is the last time you'll see breakfast on this set, actually, because coming Monday, 7 a.m, it is Mornings with Ridge and Frost. We know them as Soph and Wilf, but that doesn't really have the same ring to it. Ridge and Frost are here, 7 a.m. Monday. It's going to be great. Do tune in for that. Anna will be here with breakfast tomorrow over the weekend as well. For now, thanks for your company.